Move to the
custom live streaming service alva uncle.
yes, and keep the camera on. Your face is okay.
Yes. Sorry, computer akade illalla.
Live bandide Suhas.
Good.
Yes, and keep the camera on. Your face is okay. And your browser is on YouTube. Switch off that.
Yeah, my browser off ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರದ್ದು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಅದು.
Yeah, if anybody else has the YouTube browser on, we could just close that. It will echo otherwise.
All right, cool. Let's give it a go. YouTube's good. All right, Nish, Hemant, Sindhu, let's give it a go. So I'm gonna do my introductions just for everybody to know. Welcome to Yuva Brindavana's first event for the year that we have for our graduates that we were supposed to have back in June. So ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬಂದಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಗ್ರಾಜುಯೇಟ್ಸ್ನ ಸಂಭ್ರಮವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಆಚರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ 3 ಜನ ಪ್ಯಾನಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಮಂತ್, ನಿಶಾ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಿಂಧು ಇವತ್ತು ನನ್ನ ಜೊತೆ ಒಂದು Q&A ಸೆಷನ್ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ, ಏನೇನ್ ಕರಿಯರ್ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು ಅಂತ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಪಾಪ ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ, ಯುವ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಹೌದು, ಬಟ್ ಆ ರೀತಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ಬಹುದು. So going back to English at this point, for the sake of our graduates, and the sake of our panelists and ourselves, I'm just saying that we express our feelings and our words a little bit better in English than we do in our mother language, just because we've been so used to it. So I think they would benefit a lot more hearing from you guys this way. And as you guys know, this is our Brindavana team, which facilitates and promotes Kannada, Kannadati, Kannadigas, and everything related to Kannada, expresses culture. So the reason we picked you guys is because you guys are so closely related to this society of ours and have grown up with it and have done so many amazing things and have excelled so spectacularly. So again, thank you guys for being super cool and giving us an opportunity to be like, hey, let me go pick some really cool people out to show off to the rest of Brindavana. So I appreciate that for making my life a lot easier. So welcome, Nish, Hemant, and Sindhu. So what we're going to start off doing, we'll just kind of hit alphabetical order just because it seems like the easiest way to go about it. So I'm going to leave the floor off to Hemant. Hemant, please just introduce yourself. I did send out a bunch of blurbs via WhatsApp, so everybody has a lot of information already, but reiterate it because we don't know who all is reading it, because these WhatsApp messages are always, they get a little clouded. So please introduce yourself, let us know what you do, what you're up to, the whole nine.
Hi, thanks, Suhas. My name is Hemant Venkatraman. I have spent my career in education for roughly 20 years now. Studied engineering, was a New York City high school math, science, computer science teacher for some time. Spent some time in the nonprofit world, co-founded a charter school in Brooklyn where I live. And most recently, 3 years ago, co-founded School Culture Solutions, which is an educational consultancy. And so I'm able to coach school leaders, faculty in the region and remotely around the country in the implementation of restorative practices and restorative justice, which is something I can comment on further as we chat. So focusing on kind of more progressive approach to school culture and climate and discipline, racial equity and discipline policies, really addressing the impact that stress and burnout are having on our staff, on teachers, the impact that trauma and stress are having on youth today in the community served. And just kind of a comprehensive approach to social emotional learning in schools. And so that's what I'm doing now, as a combination of trainings for schools and ongoing coaching for their teachers and school leaders.
Thank you, Hemant. That's really fascinating stuff. And we'll get a little bit more into what you're up to and how you figured out how to get into this particular niche. And what made you feel that this was so necessary for our current generation, especially being raised in New York? Like, this is diversity, we see it. And hopefully we get to see this a little bit further in the Middle East, oh, not in the Middle East, sorry, in the Midwest area, sorry. In the Midwest area, and then, you know, eventually propagate this culture and diversity throughout the country, which is so necessary nowadays. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Hemant. Next up, we got Nisha. So same gig. People have heard quite a bit about all three of you guys, but please introduce yourself. Let us know what you're up to, what you've been up to, what you're up to now.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Nisha. I mostly grew up in New Jersey, but now live in Houston, Texas. And what moved me to Houston, Texas was my dream job. And so we'll get to talk today a little bit about how I got my dream job and all the fun things I've gotten to do in order to really get to where I want to be at this point. So what I do is I work at NASA. I work at Johnson Space Center directly, interfacing with astronauts that spend anywhere between 6 months to a whole year on the International Space Station. So part of my roles and my title specifically is kind of all encompassing about what I do on to make our mission successful. My title is Chief Training Officer, so you can infer by that title that I do a lot with training, and part of that is crew training, so astronaut training, to make sure that they are safe when they are spending these long durations on board a vehicle floating around, orbiting around the Earth. Also to make sure that the folks that keep them safe up there, the folks that operate the space station, so the crew members can focus on doing science and not fixing things, you know, because you can think of the space station as a house that breaks a lot. And we have a whole team on the ground that also is in charge of making sure things run smoothly. So my role is to make sure that when it comes to training, so managing, developing, executing different training flows for both the astronauts that actually live on the space station and the ground team, to make sure that they are prepared to handle whatever happens. And you can imagine that space exploration and day-to-day operations of space can be dynamic, to say the least. So we're really tested in exciting ways to make sure that everybody is ready to handle situations. And I get the fun job of managing not only projects and training plans, but also managing the people that go along with them, and making sure that as situations change, as new ideas and new vehicles or new even personalities come into play, that we're doing the absolute most and best that we can to make sure that everybody is safe when they fly to space. So that's a little bit about me. Looking forward to talking more.
Hey, so yeah, no, definitely. So it's crazy that you had to be able to train these guys, not having set foot within the ISS, but having set foot virtually in a non-virtual format. Like this has been years and years and years. I think NASA conceptualized virtual, and we're all following trade now. So it's fascinating the work that you do, and it's by far the coolest type of engineers out there. So I'm an engineer. Like, these guys are awesome. So a coveted job, and really proud of you, Nish, for going out there and doing a solid job. But we're excited to hear more from you. The last person that we have as our panelist is Sindhu Ravishankar. And Sindhu, let us know what you're up to, what your job entails, and how you got there and everything, and we'll start our discussions.
Thank you, Sahas. Really excited to be here with all of you. I grew up in North Carolina. I live in Washington, D.C. now, but I'm in New Jersey quite often and have participated in Brindavana events and consider that my secondary Kannada association. So I'm really, really excited to be here with you all. So my name is Sindhu Ravishankar. I work for a nonprofit organization, an international organization that's headquartered in Washington, D.C. It's called the International Association of Providers of AIDS Care, or for short, IAPAC. and I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Information there. So I'll tell you a little bit about what that means, but primarily the project that I work on, that I got hired to work on about 6 years ago, it's called the Fast Track Cities Initiative. And it is originally was a political initiative between IAPAC, the nonprofit I work for, and different UN organizations, so UNAIDS and UN Habitat primarily. And it was working to support city governments, municipal level governments, to strengthen their HIV/AIDS responses and then reach some global targets that UNAIDS had set, and a lot of different organizations had kind of come and grown consensus with these targets. So I started out when this initiative was formally launched, and it was originally, as I mentioned, a political declaration that a bunch of mayors came together in City Hall in Paris and signed up saying that we are going to reach these targets. And then since then, when I was hired, I was the first full-time staff hired on this project back in 2015. It was to kind of provide support, so beyond the political nature of the initiative, to kind of provide cities with support of how will city governments, city health departments, community organizations, doctors, nurses, all other kind of healthcare providers, how will everyone work together to actually see these targets, and the targets are treatment targets, to fruition. So that's a little bit of what I work on right now. I started quite broad because I was, like I mentioned, the first full-time staff on this project. And now I am working more specifically on strategic information or research and strategic information. So basically what that means is looking at any kind of scientific or social science research, also looking at all the data and supporting city governments and city health departments and saying, how can we take all this information that we're collecting? What kind of information should we collect? And then how can we turn it into something to make sure that we're like effectively and efficiently using it to strengthen the HIV/AIDS response. So as part of the project, I work with about 350 cities currently around the world, including in the US, including in India, and more strongly with about 50 of those cities, more in depth with about 50 of those cities. So I look forward to talking more and being part of this panel. Thanks.
Thank you, Sindhu. Actually, Sindhu, I'll just keep you on since you're already here. We're talking a little bit more about how you got involved in this random little thing that Paris decided to start all of a sudden. And then it's a really cool initiative because this education of AIDS is, and a lot of these major diseases is lacking in a lot of these countries, and what we know, they don't know. And so you are that facilitator of information and plan of action, right? So that's pretty much what you do. So like, can you take us on a day-to-day, like let's just say you're chilling in the middle of, I don't know, Uganda. What is a country that you go to that you normally go to typically often to go talk to them?
Yeah.
And what do you do there? Like, what does your day look like? You go out and go meet a president of a city or a mayor of a city. What do you do?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So my job, when it's not pandemic time and we're able to travel a little bit more freely internationally, I would say is approximately 40 to 50% travel, and then kind of 50% in our DC based headquarters. So with regards to the travel, what we're doing, just to give you a context, like the organization I work for, IAPAC, is a technical partner with the UN. And what we're really trying to do is build the capacity of cities to have really effective HIV/AIDS responses. So we're not necessarily going and saying, these are the things that need to be done, or we're not necessarily going and providing like that kind of direct education, but we're saying, how do we build the capacity so in a sustainable way, the people who are already in the city and the people who are already working on the project can kind of strengthen their response and make it more effective. So when I do get to travel, it's actually hard to answer the question, Sohas, of where do I usually go, because I usually don't go to the same place twice. It's kind of all over. I think with this job, I've been so far to probably about 30 countries. And it depends kind of a bit on what we're doing. So I have two pieces of multiple pieces, but I'll separate it into two pieces for for this discussion. So one is around our largest project, which is a USAID, so US government funded project, working very specifically with 15 cities. Most of those cities are in sub-Saharan Africa, but we have Jakarta, Indonesia, we also have Kyiv, Ukraine, and Kingston, Jamaica. All three places I've gotten to visit and are very exciting cities to go to. And for this project, a lot of what we have to do is understand the context. So we call it kind of a baseline assessment. So to understand the context of the HIV epidemic in every country, in every city, it's so incredibly different. I have to meet with all the stakeholders. So in one of these visits, for example, I would meet with the mayor's office, the Ministry of Health, different NGOs and civil society organizations, clinician organizations, just to get a lay of the land and say, hey, these are the kind of tools that we have that we can provide. How can we best use it in the context? And some of the tools that we have are, we have public domain data dashboards that are used a lot of times by health departments to see the data and make decisions on where to fund things, what programs to do, things like that. We have trainings for healthcare providers, so for doctors and nurses primarily, that update them on the most recent WHO guidelines. We have education interventions for community members. We have some surveys that just generally get kind of research that will then help the city kind of figure out what they need to do with the response. So this first trip that I'm largely involved in, these first kind of baseline assessment trips, is just understanding what's going on. Here's what we have, here's what you have. How do all of the people kind of work together in this city, and how can we kind of collaborate? There are kind of, even within that, I would say there are three pieces. So one is the kind of political handshake. So that is a little bit meeting with the mayor, sometimes doing a little press conference, getting that kind of like someone who has this voice in the city and who's a leader in the city to kind of buy in to the initiative and to the project, and kind of publicly make that commitment. So that's one of the pieces. The second piece, which is possibly my favorite piece, is that we call it the technical handshake. And that is with the actual, not that the mayor isn't doing, work, he or she is, but the technical handshake is with all the other people who are doing the work. So that's the health department surveillance, data surveillance teams. It's the, community organizations that are implementing different initiatives, things like that. So that piece is where we kind of figure out, how are we actually going to implement this project, and how are we going to really work together. And then the third piece, which is also similar kind of to the technical piece, is working with community organizations. So HIV/AIDS generally historically has a huge community advocacy component to it, because a lot of the populations that are also heavily affected by HIV/AIDS are what we call our key affected populations. So they're populations that have other kind of vulnerabilities, be it like sex workers, injecting drug users, just organizations that overall are vulnerable, not only for HIV, but other kind of social conditions as well. So really working with them to make sure that whatever project that we're doing, they are at the forefront and they're at the table, and making sure that we're doing it in a way that most impacts the community. So that's kind of what, if you want to take one of my international trips, that's what it looks like. And then a lot of other trips I do are also for information sharing. So we do a lot of workshops where we bring lots of different cities together. So for example, we might have a workshop in the African region where we bring health departments from 50 African cities to come together and share information and kind of learn from each other. So part of my job is facilitating that. And I do a lot of work around data. I think you've heard that a couple of times. So sometimes I also do trainings for health departments, either virtually or in person, on what data to collect, how to effectively collect data, and then how to use that data to its best possible use.
Awesome. I might just continue on for like another 2 minutes, because there's 2 key items that I just wanted to touch on. Mostly on the technical and data side, because data accumulation in the places that you're generally going to, it's probably very difficult, I would assume, or there isn't too much set up for data accumulation. So Is your role to provide that? And is that something that you actually work with the technical team as well to provide some method of accumulating this data, or like what exactly is the UNAIDS and all the organizations that you're a part of providing in support of this initiative that you are educating these or helping support?
Yeah, great question. So I'll say the data infrastructure, meaning the software that's used to collect the data, that usually comes from the Ministry of Health or from the city. But what we do a lot of providing is training around how to collect the data, kind of using those tools. With regards to HIV data, a lot of countries actually do collect data. There are a couple of like nuances though, which is where kind of our work comes in. So one of the areas is actually around data transparency. So the data exists, but it's not necessarily always in the public for people to access, even for stakeholders to access and figure out, how are we going to use this data? What are we going to do? It just exists somewhere in a database that's, 2 or 3 people or whatever can access to. So it's really talking about like the democratization of the data and how do we get it to the people, and then to also the affected communities and everyone kind of working on the response. That piece is it's a little bit political and it's a lot of relationship management too. So it's a lot of going and speaking to the Ministry of Health. A lot of places they don't want to share their data because their data doesn't show great. It's not good. We see that there are gaps and there are issues in these cities and these countries. So it's really talking about the importance of sharing the data. A little bit of it is also applying some positive peer pressure. So saying, hey, this city, this is your neighboring city, and they've published their data online, but you have not. So that's kind of part of the work that we do. The other work, like I said, is actually training around how to use some of these databases. The big one that's used, it's called DHIS2. I won't go into the technicalities of that, but it's like, how do we use that database? What kind of data that, are collected? A second piece, or a third piece, is around data cleaning. So how do we make sure that all the data that are being collected are kind of accurate data? I would say that that's kind of a third piece. And then a really important, perhaps the most important piece is how are we using the data? And that's where kind of the word strategic information that's in my title, that's where the piece of strategic information comes into play, because when we think of data, it's just the raw numbers, but data is a type of information, and that information can be used to guide your program. So specifically, how do we use the data to make sure that if we have $100, or 30,000 rupees, whatever currency you want to take, how are we using that currency? How are we using that amount of money to effectively strengthen the response? So, should we be training more staff? Should we be doing more community education? Should we be putting it into procuring more treatment? So it's really, one piece is using the data for financing, and also human resource allocation. So, where are human bodies kind of necessary to advance the work? So then the second thing is also programmatic prioritization. So if you want to think of it in a very kind of basic format, if we are trying to save the most lives, let's say, there are a lot of other components, but just to kind of make it a little bit more easy to digest, if we're trying to save the most lives, where should our money be going? Like, is it, or where should our programs be going? Like, what kind of things should we be doing? So it's really not just collecting data, but actually a lot about how we're using that data. And so training people, not only training, but also kind of facilitating relationships between different cities that have different kind of expertise and experiences to see how can we use data, and then also research. I haven't gotten as much into the research piece, but research as well, to make sure that we are being effective in how we use financial, human, and other resources, and how we're also kind of figuring out what are the programs that are needed in the city to end HIV epidemics.
Awesome. And data transparency, I think that's a really big keyword today's day and age, especially with everything that's going on, the more we know, the more we could do to help our society, not only in AIDS, but everything that's related to whatever transpired over the last year and a half. So I could see how that's your biggest struggle with allocating all the resources, finances, manpower. Like, it's just so much information that you could get, but so much information that people aren't willing to give. So I love the positive peer pressure. That was cool. All the cool kids are doing it. So that's awesome. We will get back to you. I think there's a couple of items that may overlap with what Heyman's up to in terms of community advocacy as well, that I think would be a cool little overlap between the two of you. So thank you, Sindhu, for sharing your day-to-day and what you're up to. That's really, really neat.
Thanks.
We'll hop right into Heyman. Heyman, it's been a minute since we spoke to you. So same question for you. What are you doing in regards to a day-to-day now with what you're up to? And the other thing that I did want to ask you about was this big item that you finished a couple of years ago with creating a charter school. And I think you're at a point where the kids are about to graduate their 5th grade elementary, I believe, or there's a certain juncture that you mentioned.
6th grade, and our first ever class graduated high school last year in 2020.
That's awesome. Now, what a year to graduate, I guess, but that is awesome. So do explain a little bit of both, just what you're up to now and what you were up to back then, what your day-to-day kind of was. And I believe you were the principal in that school at some point, or?
Yeah, kind of a co-leader.
Yeah, that's awesome. So please go ahead.
Yeah, try to figure out what context to offer in terms of what I do now on a day-to-day. So, you know, as you said, Suhas, like, a lot of what I do does overlap with what Sindhu described in community health. Even though I work in schools predominantly, I've also been intersecting with community health initiatives and guest lecturing with doctors and residents as well. Because, you know, for example, if Sindhu and her team were to show up in a heavily impacted area tomorrow and say, hey, everyone, line up, we have a magic cure for AIDS. You take this and you're cured, and no one that ever comes after this will ever be infected again. Some might be surprised why millions of people don't get in that line. So why might they not? Because there's a lot we don't understand about human behavior, about trust, about relationships, and about what motivates people to actually do things. And that's what restorative practices is all about, right? So it's an intersection of psychology, of neurobiology, of the field of criminology. And it essentially states that, you know, like we understand that people need food and water and things to survive. There's something called Maslow's hierarchy. What people have grossly underestimated for decades now is that human beings need a healthy sense of social connectedness, literally to survive. It's actually a mortality risk to not have, right? In the past 20 years, the number of Americans who have reported having zero confidants in their life, not a single human being in whom they can truly trust, has tripled. We've tripled the number of Americans. In fact, it's the most popular answer in our country right now. How many people do you have that you can truly confide in? Zero, all right? So we think that because of Snapchat and TikTok and whatever our graduates are using these days, I don't know, we're more connected, and counterintuitively, we're less connected as a society than we've ever been. And this is having massive repercussions on every industry. So I'm focusing predominantly in schools, right? Because if you went to school in this country, then it is a guarantee that you attended a school with an outdated and obsolete model of discipline and generally fostering community relationships. It's just the era that we grew up in, and even where most schools are now. And so if what motivates, it's not just a survival need, it turns out that the number one variable that motivates people even to do their best, to try to reach their potential, to avoid doing harm to others, is a sense of belonging and a community, right? But all the schools that we attended, whether you're from New Jersey, North Carolina, or California, were built with this false understanding that if you want people to do right, make sure you have strong punishments in place. As long as you threaten people, people will fall into line. Threaten people. If you don't get an A, I'm going to do this to you. If you get in a fight, we're going to do this to you. And it's been proven by just volumes of evidence that that's nonsense. And that's not actually what motivates people. And it's not developed yet appropriate for adolescents. Adolescents don't have the impulse control to be like, wait, if I do this, I'm going to get in trouble. So maybe it's nonsense just in terms of the neuroscience of how even our teenagers work. So I say that all that context to say my day-to-day at a time like this, when schools are doing a lot of their onboarding, preparing for the school year to start, it's training. It's training schools in what is restorative practices. What would it look like to make a transformation of your school, which is not going to happen overnight. It's really a 3 to 5 year transformation if you're truly committed, right? But who are the schools that call me? They're schools that are just like my school was in Brooklyn in our second, third year, plagued by fights, by classroom disruptions, by low morale, by a high degree of stress among staff, students, by a population that's often just impacted by daily trauma and things that children should never have to experience. So the principals are under pressure and they're saying, listen, what is all this science of connection? I want to hear none of this nonsense. Tell me how to get rid of suspensions and fights and stuff, because that's what you said you did in your school. So a lot of my work is teaching a mindset to folks like, we're going to get there, but if you try to rush it, it's going to fail. All right. So we're going to get to these outcomes. But first, what I need you to understand is you have to design your school to be built on a foundation of relationships, community, and belonging. All right. If you have a child in a classroom who is not able to, or I'll flip it the other way, there's so many children who are scared to answer or take risks. They want to raise their hand in math class. What if everyone laughs at me? What if I get this thing wrong? What if people are judging me? What if they hate me? What if I don't look good today? Right. So if we don't first make people feel like they're part of a community where we can take risks, where we learn from our mistakes, where we can empathize, where we tell stories, right, about each other's lives and realize how much we have in common. If we can't do that, none of the other stuff can work. Right. And so what I tell principles, the science of restorative practices teaches us that 80% of restorative practices is actually proactive things that we do to foster a sense of community. And this is why I said it overlaps with the field of health and that kind of thing, because what I teach even doctors and residents here in New York is, you guys want to bring about population change. And my wife's an ophthalmologist. And so I met with her residents. I said, what's an example of a population change you want to bring about? They said, well, none of our patients take their glaucoma meds. Okay, perfect. All right. So now what is even your mindset? How do you even see this community? All right. Are they a project for you, or are they actually your partners in this work? If they're a project because you want to show up in Brooklyn or New Orleans or Miami and say, I'm this educated person who went to this elite university and I know what's best for you, right? Even though I'm not from here, I don't look like you, I've never, but line up, I'm not, or, hey, I don't just see you as a deficit from a deficit mindset. I see you as a community with beauty and value and strength. And I'm going to partner with you in celebrating that, helping to earn your trust in order to bring about this change in behavior. And it's the same thing with schools. So if we get that 80% right, only 20% of our energy will need to be dedicated to repairing harm. But that is the other part of restorative practices, right? How do we repair harm as a community? Again, punishment does not work. It's been proven by every last research that it doesn't work. Retribution is not how you make somebody learn, take accountability, and bring healing to people, right? If somebody assaulted you in the street today, and I said, don't worry, Suhas, we locked him up for 20 years, everything taken care of, you would not actually in your heart experience a sense of justice. It might even just be that all you really need from this moment is an opportunity for someone to listen to you and make you feel heard and say, hey, this is how I felt at that moment when this person was doing this thing, We might have children and say, hey, I was scared I would never see my children again. We want somebody to acknowledge that. So it's not retribution. So I teach schools how to actually bring the community together, listen to the needs of people who've been affected, and heal. And so heal from that event, heal from trauma, heal from past injustices, and move forward. So a day-to-day might be offering that training. And then during the year, it's less the initial professional development, and it's more the coaching, the guidance, right? So I go to schools, I model how to do community building circles in the classroom. Maybe there's been an incident of egregious harm, and I facilitate a healing circle or a formal restorative conference to bring justice there, but hopefully in a way that avoids having to expel or lock up another child, often disproportionately Black and brown children in our country, right? And that's kind of what the day-to-day is. Or, often a school will try to test me about 6 weeks from now. They'll say, okay, this guy says he knows what he's talking about. Let's put him in front of our like the worst kid in the school. This kid, he's in a gang, he curses everybody, he pushes, and let's see if Heymonth can handle it. And then I go there and I'm like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. You know what I mean? It's not gonna happen in 5 minutes, but I am gonna spend time with this child. And 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, what's interesting is I'll ask that child, who's the one adult in this school? I know you don't get along with some people. I know you've had a rough go. Who's the one adult that you can trust, that you go to when you have a problem and they really listen to you and they treat you as a human being? And guess what the most popular answer is? Nobody. There's nobody in this school. So why do we expect a child whose brain is not even fully formed yet, who doesn't even feel like there's a single adult in this space that truly cares about them, that they can trust, but we want to point the finger at them and say, yeah, but you don't behave, but you don't study, but you fight, but you this, so we want to kick you out. How could that make any sense, right? So that's really kind of what it is. I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's
that you did. That was your day-to-day. That was a perfect answer to my question. And it's so powerful to see like how a little bit of trust goes such a long way. And I think that is something that we are missing in a lot of inner city areas. I think that core person that you could go to, that mentor, the confidant. I love the big brothers, big sisters organizations that they have. Like there's a lot of things that people are trying to do, but having it at the root level that you are attacking in terms of education. And is it usually like higher education, like 6th grade and higher, or is it like much earlier as well? Like who do you usually work with significantly?
Mostly, middle school and high school, 6th to 12th grade. It's applicable to any age group, including adults. And I've done some workshops for folks in the workplace as well, because we're humans and we're going to have conflict. But yeah, most of my focus is in that like 6th to 12th grade age range.
That's awesome, man. And I think your day-to-day in terms of training. So are you training predominantly your professors, your teachers and principal entities? And do you usually do a lot of this like in-person communication with the students? Like on a typical school year, are you predominantly working with the students, or are you predominantly working with the faculty rather?
Yeah, predominantly with the adults in the space. But yeah, I also do workshops with students. We just do kind of social emotional learning and character education and help folks build, qualities like resilience and things like that. And we also teach students, mindful practices, breathing, meditation, things that can help them build up some resilience to the stress and the toxic stress. That's not just a hardship, but actually alters a child's brain architecture. So we don't give people some defenses against that. And it's really not even, it might be concentrated a lot in students who are of a lower income level, but it's really just something that's affecting our entire population. So we do it with all different demographics.
And we just got a question. So I'm getting a couple questions here and there. So I got one for you later on. But one of the questions is in regards to our community. And I think, yes, we may not see it as often as you do in the inner city areas, just because, again, there's that level of trust and confidant in terms of parents and having a role model to look up to. So I think being in a community such as this is a immense benefit to us. But either which way, there are these stresses. There are some higher arching levels of achievement that we are enforcing upon our children. So the question is there any structured resource or training that like a fellow Indian parent, fellow for you, Indian parent, can utilize for themselves to get their kids equipped with a less stressful educational environment? Like, would you have any suggestion in regards to that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of my partner organizations known as Sky Schools, we do workshop with parents, with community members. I also do a workshop called Parenting with Love and Logic with parents. It's kind of like a restorative approach to parenting in the household, because everything I said is the same thing, right? Punishing children as opposed to collaborating with them to learn from mistakes, which we all made and they will inevitably make. So there are a number of resources that I could share that parents do take advantage of. That's one of my primary messages to the school as well. The parents have to be our partners in this, right? We can't just tell kids something. And sometimes the parents will call me like, dude, what'd you teach my daughter? We were yelling at each other the other day and then she went and did some breathing on the couch. If she knows this, I need to know this. So what's going on? And then we do a parent workshop, right? We just teach them, even just basic breathing techniques some of us grew up with in our household that we're now proliferating, right? So yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I could share some of those resources as well.
That's awesome. And speaking of like some of those tools that you're providing these kids, like, is that part of the proactive circles or the proactive ideologies that you're providing for these children? Can you share a couple more ideas and thoughts that you've been able to effectively utilize with the community?
Yeah, can you maybe clarify what you
So you mentioned that you had things like the circle of, sorry, it was
like our community building circles?
Yeah, community building circles and the healing circles, and then you said there were also some like proactive methods that you guys utilize instead of retroactive punishments that you have to give them. So just like an example of that and what you guys are working on.
So circles is actually, this idea of circles is an age-old, been around for a long time, mainly kind of an indigenous practice, particularly of the North American indigenous peoples, First Nation peoples, African, Australian, and really involved, like even back then, even 1,000 years ago, human beings understood the things that we're now teaching, right? That these modern oppressive justice systems are not actually the way human beings were just meant to operate on a day-to-day. So folks in a tribe would sit in a circle and just share stories and openly share feelings. Because like, when's the last time you like actually openly told any community, and especially the people around you on a day-to-day, right? Like the people in your work, people at the grocery store, I don't know. All right, before I learned restorative practices, I don't know. Now I face 500 strangers and I tell them the last time I cried is like a normal thing, right? But if we all did that, if we had no inhibition to sharing our affect and our feelings, and we shared stories, that's the proactive thing, Suhas, because when kids, that's how it was for me, right? I would see kids in schools with problems and bullying or whatever, but when kids start sharing their stories and one kid realizes, wow, you lost your grandmother, that happened to me too, we share this law, it really starts to stave that, because you just, again, you don't bring harm to a place that feels like home. That's really what restorative practices is saying, all right? So we do that, and a lot of these issues go by. And then when harm inevitably happens, the kids have practiced empathy and they have the vocabulary to heal. So now 2 kids get in a fight, and then somebody's mother comes to the school and says, young man, when I got a call at work that my child had been beaten up, this is how it actually affected me. But the children I work with, their whole lives, they've been labeled, they've been beaten, they've been yelled at, but no one actually ever came to them caringly and just said, hey, this is how it affected me. And my boss is mad at me because I had to leave work to come here. And the whole way driving, I was terrified and my heart was pounding because I heard that someone punched my child in the face. And now this kid that's saying that everyone has labeled a gangbanger, he's this, he's never said sorry, he's in tears and he's apologizing. And that's the first step to reconciliation, right? So that's how the proactive informs the responsive practices and brings real healing to a community.
And I was actually about to touch base upon that as well. It must be really difficult to take a child who isn't trusting and who doesn't have this community support to say, hey, let's participate, right? Let's participate in this discussion. That's probably the biggest hurdle that you guys have. And what is it? Persistence is key, or what do you find is the best tool to break that first mold with the children?
Yeah, I mean, if it, in our classroom community building circles, it's just starting really light. We don't start with, hey, tell us about this time you had lost somebody. It's just like, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And kids just start sharing, what's a movie you saw this time? And then by November, the conversations are deeper. By January, they're deeper, right? By February, the kids are calling for circles, right? So when I was in the classroom, Mr. V, we really need to circle up today because so-and-so, had this rough weekend and this happened to their family. I said, okay. And if teachers in this country had the opportunity to do that, if we weren't so locked into content because some standardized test is coming, and we could say, you know what, forget quadrilaterals today. We're going to sit in a circle, look each other in the eye and listen because somebody in this class is suffering. Just imagine what would happen to our society if we were doing that between ages of 5 and 18, right? So that's what it is. And then when harm does happen, everyone always asks me that, how are you going to convince this kid? And I'm like, I've never had to convince. I've worked in various communities now, and just saying, hey, I'm going to give you this opportunity, right, to take accountability for this thing. I've never once, trust me, I've dealt with every egregious harm that you can imagine or fathom, and it's not once been an issue for either side, offender or victim. People naturally want this. They want this kind of justice and healing. So it hasn't been a struggle.
No, that's awesome. And it makes sense. That's what you see. And I guess it's just more of when you actually do it and when you actually participate in it, it makes a lot more sense, especially from being your side. It just, for everybody else, it seems like such a daunting task, but I think the first step is just to take that first step, and it'll get a lot easier from there, right? So no, thank you. We will get back to you. I think you owe me a little bit more information in regards to how you did your charter school, how you guys started that up and all that. But I do wanna touch base on that a little later. But we'll move on to Nisha right now. Just the same question. Essentially, there's what is your day to day? Thank you, Hemant. Nisha, what does your day to day look like? What are you doing? You kind of explained what you're interacting with, who you're interacting with. So we get the idea. And again, this is probably one of the more publicized jobs out there, especially in the recent past, with NASA doing a lot of work with a lot of Elon Musk doing a lot of work, with a lot of Original Angela doing a lot of work. So there's a lot of attention on space right now, which is awesome, right? We're back in the 60s again. So what is your day to day, Nish, and what do you have to deal with? Who are you working with? And I also want you to touch base a little bit on, Houston, we got a problem, how that was you at one point in time before you got here. So please explain a little bit more about what you do.
Yep, for sure, Sahas. So first, I loved hearing what both Hemant and Sindhu had to say. And one of the things that I grabbed from what both of them shared is that they both have to learn how to gain trust, whether it's trust from other medical professionals all over the world, or in Hemant's case, trust between parents and students on a very like down to earth, everyday kind of way. So I also work in the business of trust, in a sense. I work with astronauts that, no kidding, have a team and myself on the ground to make sure that when they fly, when they're on board a vessel that's orbiting around the Earth 24/7, they are in safe hands. At NASA, we stress safety. We say that word safe so many times that you cannot go an hour without thinking about how what you're doing at this very moment impacts the safety of our crew members on board. Everything we do is around that statement and around that thought process. And you guys all know that there have been incidences in the past that have led us to this culture of safety. And our primary goal is to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And so my day-to-day, first of all, our culture is about safety, mission, and then vehicle. And so we just want to make sure that everything that we're doing keeps our astronauts safe. And if we need to bring them back, and that's the safest thing to do, that's what we do. Before we worry about if we are impacting the vehicle, so the actual vessel that they're in, or before impacting the mission, where the mission refers to the experiments that they're doing. So people first, just like how Sindhu and Hemant work with, that's what we do too. Day to day is kind of, I'm not sure exactly how to explain it. I feel like most of the time when you think of an engineer, and that's what I am, that's what my degrees are in. When you think of an engineer, you think of a computer with a desk, and you're working 8 hours on, I don't know, coding or whatever, right? But I wasn't looking for that kind of engineering job. I wanted something that would get me out of that chair and get me into either different locations, working with all kinds of different people. And that's thankfully what I ended up doing. So my day-to-day can be varied based on what's going on. And it's always directly tied to specific operations that are happening with the International Space Station. For example, like Sahas mentioned, there is a lot going on. And you might be surprised to find out that all of these other companies, we're talking SpaceX, Boeing, Blue Origin, and even the smaller ones like Dynetics or Raytheon that are doing things like CubeSats, for example. All of these smaller companies that are doing experiments that end up on the space station, all of that is coordinated through NASA. So NASA still serves as a hub for all of these private companies. There is no there is no strife. We're all in this together. And because of that culture that we have in the space community, a lot of my job does also have to do with making sure that all of the preparation and the coordination with all of those companies as they go through NASA and eventually in some format to the crew members that live on board the station. So some of that is including, like I mentioned before, developing what for my job specifically, right? Because there's a lot of us that work different aspects of this, but I work in the training part of it. So first understanding what a specific project might be. I'll give you an example. So I recently worked with the Northrop Grumman folks out in Virginia. They launched a spacecraft called Cygnus. Cygnus 15 and 16 were recent events. They launched out of Virginia. We docked to the space station. They're both cargo vehicles, so they're full of stuff. Everything from things the astronauts need, like food, clothing, stuff like that, to experiments, to supplemental things we need to keep the station running. So it had no people, it only had cargo. But in order for that launch to be successful, and in order for the astronauts to be able to capture the vehicle and remove the things that were in the vehicle in a appropriate manner, there was a ton of training involved. Everything from our ground team had to understand how to make the space station in the right configuration in order to capture the vehicle. For example, we have thrusters that fire to make sure that the space station is staying at a certain spot in space. And if it's not at that certain spot, then the vehicle will not be able to dock to that space station. And so we have a whole team on the ground to make sure that, hey, a vehicle is coming, you better not move. And when that vehicle finally comes, we use a robotic arm. And so there's a whole team on the ground that has learned how to use that robotic arm. And part of my job is to make sure that they have trained for this specific task. And then on the flip side, the astronauts themselves, after the vehicle is docked to the space station, they now have to know how to open this vehicle. It's not as easy as doing a little unlock and then bam, a door is opened. There's a whole coordination with respect to equalizing pressure and making sure that the things inside the vehicle don't contaminate the actual space station. So we also train the astronauts on how to do all of that. And once they finally get the vehicle open, there's a whole other coordination about how to remove the things from the vehicle and store them appropriately where they're supposed to go, or how to use the items that are stored inside the vehicle if it's a specific science experiment. And so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what I do on a day-to-day basis because it really depends on which missions I'm leading. So in this case, I led the ground team with simulations to make sure that they can actually capture this vehicle and understand how the space station was supposed to be ready. And then I also trained the astronauts on board to make sure that they knew how to do similar things, but from their point of view. So that's one of the projects that I worked on, but I also work on actual expeditions where it'll be crewed missions from either launching from Kennedy Space Center or Soyuz's in Russia, where they'll go to the space station. And once you add people to anything, like you guys know, it becomes a level of complicated that is just beyond anything else. And again, everything that we do is going to be about, are we keeping our crew members safe? And so we go through malfunction scenario after malfunction scenario to make sure that we have thought of every single worst case scenario possible. And those worst case scenarios are also part of what I train the ground team on and the crew members on, to make sure that if for some reason, unforeseeable or foreseeable sometimes, if one of these things happen, you know what, we're prepared. We can do this either on the ground or the crew members, and that level of assurance that we are ready for whatever happens is what drives our culture of safety. And my final job and my final spiel about what I do is kind of a big picture of developing and managing these flows. But also I'm the one at the end of the day to, I think of it like a giant checkbox. And I go, you know what? Yes, astronaut A, he is certified. If he flies to space, I can assure you that his mission duration, anywhere between 6 months to a year-ish, he is prepared, he is safe, he or she, there are lots of female astronauts too. So he or she is prepared and safe, and we have done everything that we can to make sure that they are ready to fly. And what goes into that, hey, yes, the checkbox is done, is years worth of training, and it's years worth of planning. But no kidding, we don't check that box off until we're sure. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh my God, yes. That is so fascinating. And you know what? It is an immense responsibility, because you are signing that checkbox, as you said. So you're saying that, hey, these guys, I'm gonna send you guys to the most expensive equipment out of this world, and work on the most expensive equipment that we have created, and somehow guarantee that you will not mess anything up. And I think your day-to-day, other than training these guys, has got to be, I'm assuming, unless you just kind of know these things all the time, getting trained yourself. Like, how do you have this technical expertise, and how are you the expert of this information, and knowing it from this side, from the ground side, and also still having that touch with the ISS and knowing exactly what their components are? It must be an absurd amount of training that you have to go through. How's that going for you? And how do you guys generally, even for you and the astronauts that you're training, how do you guys conduct this really real life simulations to create this training? Great
question, Sahas. Which kind of boils down to me, how can you teach something that I've never actually done? Spoiler alert, I'm not an astronaut. And so how am I able to figure out what they need to know in order to be successful? And first of all, there's a whole giant team of people on the ground that have never been astronauts, but have skills in terms of communication, teamwork. Passion actually is a big one for us at NASA. And you're absolutely right. There is a very intense certification process in order for me to do what I do now, and also one of the previous jobs that I did prior, which I think I'll quickly mention now. So when I first started my career here, I certified to be in mission control. And if you guys are looking for a mental picture, it's like if you've ever watched any classic space movie, we're talking Apollo 13 or really any of them, there's always a giant room filled with intimidating looking consoles with a ton of data on them. And there's a flight director in the middle of the room, and every console is responsible for a certain piece, whether it's power or thermal or data or health or whatever. And so when I first started my career here, I trained as a power and thermal analyst for the space station. So I was the expert in how we generated energy for the space station from the sun, of course. And then all of that generated a lot of heat. So also the expert on how that heat was dissipated and radiated out to space. And so that was my expertise. But I wanted, and part of that included actually working what we call real-time operations. So actually sitting in mission control while we were operating 24/7. And part of that was also training on a smaller scale. So I would be teaching just the power and thermal parts to new flight controllers, to crew members, and that was it. But what I wanted was to manage the actual flow, to gain the leadership experience and the responsibility that comes when you are managing multiple types of experts. And so that's why I set my sights on my current roles, Chief Training Officer, to make sure that I not only understood the small pieces. So yes, I'm the expert on power and thermal, but I also know how power and thermal fits in with data handling, how power and thermal fits in with communication, and all of the health and wellness aspect of it. And the EVAs, which are when the crew member actually goes outside of the station to fix different things. So I took my knowledge from very specialized to a lot more big picture. And when I made that transition, that was also another certification process. And the Delta cert, in a sense, that was me getting to take classes like crew members took classes, which was really cool. It was really awesome. For example, we have very specialized tools that we use in space for obvious reasons, right? Because they need to be anchored properly because things are always floating. There's different mechanisms that don't necessarily work in space the same way that they work on the ground. And so we needed to train them on how these new tools work, even if they are experts in their garage fixing cars or whatever. These are different tools. And so I got to learn this stuff too. And that I didn't learn it from a point of view of, hey, I need to use this every day, but I learned it from a point of view of, okay, what is going to be difficult about this tool versus another tool? And what training do we need to specifically do for this one that might be different than what they're used to on the ground? And come from that point of view when I'm taking some or all of these classes. That being said, though, I mean, I will preface with, I don't do the entire training flow. I do cool stuff, but the astronauts themselves, they do a level of training that you guys will not even believe. Like we put them in a bubble in the middle of the ocean, and we're like, hey, you guys are gonna live here for 2 weeks, and like see how you do the training in isolation, for example, because that's what it's going to be like when they're on board, right? Very isolating. Or a lot of them are very adventurous. So they'll be like, hey, we're going to go climb Mount Everest in 3 weeks. And that human performance element is so important to make sure that you're mentally ready for the challenges of space travel. So I don't do any of that kind of training. So that stuff I learn based on communication, and like I talk to a lot of astronauts to see what of our training flow they've used most on board. And we're constantly adapting to make sure that we are staying current and staying on top of what they actually use on board. So it's definitely a give and take, and it's an iterative process. There isn't a hey, this is what you do and you'll become an astronaut. That doesn't exist, because that's what I do. I figure out the guidelines per crew member based on everything from their strengths and weaknesses to what they've done in the past to what our current mission objectives are, to feedback that we've gotten from recent flown crew members. And I put all of that into figuring out what they need. And that big picture is what I bring to the table versus an individual, hey, this is what you need to do.
No, agreed. And so somebody was asking, hey, you know so much about all this stuff. When do we get to see you out in the ISS? But then I guess it's up to when you're ready to go climb Mount Everest and go live in isolation, I think is the answer, right? So
yeah, so
there's a lot.
So Haas, like I I don't want to discourage anyone, but when I was very, very young, I wanted to be an astronaut, you know, like didn't we all at some point?
Oh, 100%.
I wanted to be an astronaut, but then I started learning about what it takes to be an astronaut. And I realized that my specific skills didn't align to that. And that's okay, you know, and that's why I stuck with that frame of mind, though. I knew I wanted to work in that industry, but I wasn't going to be scaling Mount Everest. I don't even, for example, one of the things that we have them all do is we train. Oh, I showed you actually the big pool that we train in, right? And part of training in this giant pool that we have is that they have to be scuba certified. And well, I'm not doing that. So I'm happy with the career path that I chose because I get to work with them all the time. But yeah, I don't think you guys will see me in space.
No, and you know what? You're doing such phenomenal things down on the ground, and they need you out there. So you keep doing you, Nish. And honestly, you touched upon a really, really good topic, and I think seems to be the theme of the panelists is just trust, right? Like these guys need to be able to trust that you know enough to prepare them for what they don't know what they're getting prepared for. So it's that level of trust to have in somebody in terms of either technical or societal or political. It's what we need as a society, and I think it's something that the future generation should really work on, to be transparent with your information. Like with you guys, we see troubleshooting that happens all the time in our industries, and our industries are not critical industries. So a lot of times we see a lot of people cutting corners, a lot of people doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing. So when something goes down and something goes completely haywire, troubleshooting takes hours, right? You have data scientists, they're sitting there for hours troubleshooting. But for you guys, that's so much lost time. Like everything has to be perfect almost for you guys to know exactly how to troubleshoot from where you are. So that level of trust and thoroughness and just cleanliness in terms of the way you engineer, the way you even program, if it's as little as programming, like things like that need to be intact for you to do what you need to do. Like would you consider that there's ever been a situation where you just did not know what to do on a troubleshooting event? That is scary. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure, Sahas. Like I mentioned, we do train for next worst failures like you wouldn't believe. Just every scenario, we literally sit in a room and we're like, what should we break today? And like, let's see how the team can handle it. You know, that's a lot of what we do. But we also always joke that what actually happens sometimes is in a way that we cannot predict. The way the hardware fails, the way the people respond to the way hardware fails. There are so many factors we cannot predict. So it really goes back to, do you have a solid foundation? Do you understand inside and out what you're operating and how to do it properly, safely again, and make sure that decisions that you're making are rooted in that strong technical base for us.
Yeah. And just a couple of fun facts, I think. You were saying he or she are astronauts. Your longest standing astronaut is a woman right now, right? She has been there for years and years, almost.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I started saying he, I was like, no, there's lots of female astronauts.
Yep. So all you girls out there, Nisha's dream, your dream, it could definitely be a thing. You set your mind to it, you set your goals. And the place that Nisha went to, and you know what, this is gearing us towards our next question anyway. Like what was that single moment that propelled you into this industry? But girls, if you guys are interested, it's not a guy's thing. You girls scaled Mount Everest, girls go down in isolation. And that girl is rocking it. She is the longest standing astronaut in the ISS, which is phenomenal. So, and other fun fact is, side note, if you do want to see what mission control looks like, just check out one of the One Direction videos that Nish is in, and you'll see that as well, I think. So there's an example of mission control for you. We'll share which video that was, but they are in the video. But Nish, what was that single idea or person or event that took place that kind of said, hey, I need to go this way? And what was that route that you took? I think a lot of people would be interested to maybe take a similar path or a relatively similar path.
Sahas, I laughed out loud when you brought up the One Direction video. Yeah, we'll share that. We'll share that after, because you're right. Some of our younger audience might not be familiar with these classic movies, but they certainly will be familiar with that music video. So one of the I'd say catapulting moments for me happened very, very early on. Again, it was a dream of, I want to be an astronaut. And it was, I immigrated with my family to New Jersey when I was, well, Chicago and then New Jersey, when I was about 7 years old. And when I was in Chicago for a very, very short stint of time, I met this teacher. Her name was Mrs. Charles, and she was my first American teacher. And she taught me all kinds of things, even from like how to take care of our pet hamster to how to count change. And one of the weeks that I was in her classroom, and I think it was third grade. Yeah, third grade. We did this whole immersive space week. And that was the first time I had really been exposed to outer space. And we were reading books about it. We were talking about it. She exposed me to other astronauts, other people in the field. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And it kind of sounds crazy because I was so young at the time, but since then that was the moment for me when I was like, this is what I want to do. And granted, throughout the years, there were lots of other factors that led me to where I am today. And some of those, no kidding, is a lot of encouragement from both my family and community. So once I stated, hey, I want to be an astronaut, shout out to my parents, right? Who I'm sure are watching. They were like, yep, let's do it. There was no question about, hey, you're not going to be XYZ enough to do it. It was yep, that's now our goal, and we're going to do whatever we can to make that happen. And community wise too, it was like, hey, cool, that's your interest. Like, here are some books to read. Here are some people to talk to see if this is what you actually want to do. And you're not just, this is the first thing that you saw. And someone in our community actually, and now we're fast forwarding a little bit. So I still maintain the interest throughout middle school and high school, again, because I liked it and it was cool. And then in high school, as I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go to college and what I wanted to actually focus in to make this a reality. And by this point, I had already decided I wasn't going to be an astronaut, but I needed to find out where I was going to fit in. And someone in our VSN group actually told us about this university in Florida that was very specialized in aerospace engineering and that whole aviation world. And so immediately I was like, well, okay, that makes sense. That's where I'm going to go. And that's where I did. And it was amazing to be surrounded by people who were like-minded. And I think that was another huge proponent for why I could stick to what I wanted to do. Everybody loved what I did. We could talk about it. We could work on projects together. We were all searching for the same fulfillment for what we love to do. And what we love to do was very similar. And that school for sure was a huge part in what helped me stick with what I love and explore exactly how I wanted to make this a career. And then I did my master's at Cornell. And the combination of the people that I met, the courses that I did, landed me a interview with NASA right out of college, which is, to me, it was kind of crazy. I didn't know that right out of college you could get a job like the kind of job I got. I thought you had to have like 40 years of experience or something, but turns out you could. and after going through a bit of a process there, I was like, I never in a million years thought I would be in Texas. But I got the job that I wanted here, and within the organization, I've moved a couple of places to get to where I am now. And it really goes down to being focused, looking for opportunities like throughout college and after, for sure. And talking to people. If you have an interest, talk to people about it, because you never know who's going to give you an idea, who's going to help you propel your career forward. We never work this in a bubble. Like I couldn't do this by myself. That's not a thing that happens, right? It's you have to lean on other people. You have to keep your ears open, because they probably have some information for you to help you figure out what you want to do, and then actually go do it. So that's a bit of about how I ended up here.
Thank you. And that's it. I think it's just your community support and having everybody jive with you in terms of what you wanted and how you wanted to do it. I think that's immense, right? Like parents, well, everybody wants their kids to be an engineer, so you got a little easier there than some of those educators or public health officials, right? But public health is also a common thing. But the idea of an engineer is something that's a little more culturally normal, but the vastness of that goal to not say, hey, there is going to be a limitation for you is huge. To make it achievable and make it attainable is awesome. And we're lucky that you got all the support you needed, because now we can show you off. So that's exciting. And I'm going to ask something similar to Cindy. We're going to go back to you. Thank you, Nish. Cindy, like, how did you get there? There's a couple of questions for you, by the way, that I did want to touch upon as well. But how did you get to where you got to, and how do you feel being in a more political type of environment than a typical structure like workflow or job space? How did you get to where you got to?
Yeah, thanks, Sahas. I'm so enjoying, as I'm sure everyone else is, I really enjoyed listening to both him and Nisha speak. And before I answer that question, I just actually wanted to really pull another kind of similarity that I've seen across all three of us that I think is really important as we're all thinking about our professional careers, for those of us who are future professionals and those of us who are current professionals. So we talked a lot about trust, and I think another really important concept that everyone on this panel has spoken to is this iterative process. And I think at its core, that really actually also comes from approaching your profession or anything that you're doing in life, really, with a bit of humility and realizing, you could have all the certifications in the world, all the training in the world, all the degrees from all the best schools in the world, but it's just impossible for one human being to really know everything about everything and, really understand how to do, understand from all different angles and all different perspectives. So I think it's really great to hear across the entire panel this common theme of, all right, so this is our role, but a lot of it is getting feedback from all the different players, taking that, packaging that, reorganizing that, putting it back out, and just, it's a constant, it's not, a static thing, it's this constant learning process and growing process, and also ability to lean on others when it's required to lean on others. So sorry, I didn't mean to skirt your questions, House, but I just thought it was really nice to also hear, and I was reflecting as I was listening to the other panelists on how I've seen that in my own career. So I just kind of wanted to point that out as for our future professionals who are on the line. And to answer your question about kind of how I got where I got, I definitely think it's very difficult to point to like a singular instance. I like the word Nisha used, which was what kind of catapulted her into the career that she is in right now. But I think for me, I was similar to Nisha. I was always very, very much interested in health. And particularly population health. And originally that manifested in a desire to potentially go to medical school. I think to be a doctor, to learn also kind of about that, like the scientific clinical aspects of it, but also about the bedside kind of empathy side of it and really connect to people. So that's kind of where I originally started. And as I went through undergrad in particular, I realized that the opportunities that I was seeking out were more community health and population health focused. So then I kind of started framing and saying, what does this mean for my career? Kind of what can I do with it? One really important experience for me is when I was a junior in undergrad, I did a study abroad program in Cape Town, South Africa. And when I was doing that, I took a course in particular. I took a couple of really interesting courses. One course in particular that I took was called Medical Anthropology. That was a combination of medical sciences and of social or cultural anthropology. So a lot about human behavior and really thinking through like how and why humans interact with health, how humans also define wellness and kind of what that means and how that can feed back into how our medical systems are functioning and how it can kind of inform our medical systems and really put the people at the center and make sure that all of our health and medical systems are serving the people. So that was a really, really like inspiring class to me. And I had a wonderful professor as well. So once I finished my study abroad time, I decided actually that it was in 2010. I was in South Africa. It was, for those of you soccer fans, it was the World Cup, and I was like, I'm not ready to leave. I really want to stay for the World Cup, but I also want to continue my learning journey. So like, what else can I do? So I found a nonprofit that was based in Cape Town, South Africa. Kind of emailed them out of the blue and said, hey, I'm here. These are the skills that I have. These are my interests. These are my passions. I'm willing to do any kind of free work. Like, can I have an internship? And they were like, yes, this is great. So originally what I had started out doing is because this is the World Cup, a lot of kids did not have school. So they had a lot of programs, particularly for kids who were in areas in the townships where there was a high level of HIV prevalence, and to really keep them, out of trouble. So I was volunteering with these programs essentially, and then I got very interested, just being around the NGO generally and all the clients that they served. I got very interested, particularly in with a couple of adults that I worked with who are all adults living with HIV. And they had we were talking, Hemant was talking about circles, but they had a support group, which is kind of like a circle. It was all peers who came together, talked. It could be about HIV. It doesn't have to. It could literally be about like, we don't know how to get our kids to school on time. It was just really creating this kind of community to discuss a lot of shared issues. And at that time, the NGO was going through this kind of transition phase where they were trying to decide whether or not to keep this as a peer group or to bring in content experts. So for example, to bring in someone who knows a lot of information about antiretroviral treatments, which is HIV treatments, to provide that kind of education. And there was some pushback from the actual clients, which are the adults living with HIV, because they didn't want something to break the safe space that they had built by bringing in kind of an external person who may or may not be living with HIV, content expert. So I decided that I kind of wanted to conduct a research study, it was a qualitative research study, working with the adults who are living with HIV to kind of see what are their needs, what do they most importantly need? Is it education about treatment? Is it a safe space? And how can, with some of the changes that the NGO leadership was trying to make, because also it's really important to get some of this perhaps like scientific knowledge and treatment literacy work and stuff into the community. How can we potentially find like a happy medium where both objectives are sustained? So that's kind of where I came from it, and I proposed this to the NGO. They were really happy with that. And so I actually had the privilege of sitting in on a lot of these with the permission of everybody there, because it is very much a safe space, but I had the privilege of sitting in on some of these focus groups. I also learned a little bit of isiXhosa, because that's the language that the Bantu African language that they spoke. I don't remember much of it, but I had a translator. But then I got to do some like individual interviews and focus groups to kind of to understand. And then at the end of a 3-month period, so it was a short research. I had a proposal which actually kind of guided how some content could be developed and peers trained in a way where the peers could deliver kind of content around treatment literacy and science instead of bringing in an external expert. So once I went through that, and that was all propelled because of my desire to stay for the World Cup, once I went through all of that, I realized that my true passion is in, I would say, community health and public health. But one of the things that I really, really like, I think throughout my life, I've always tried to do this, but it became even more apparent, is my need to be able to understand things from different angles and different perspectives. I might not necessarily be an expert on everything, but I wanted to be able to at least engage with like the economics, with the political history and how that had an effect, with the culture. So like also kind of looking from an anthropological lens, perhaps. And then of course from an epidemiological and public health lens. And so when I was applying for schools originally, I was thinking, should I be applying for a master's in public health? And a supervisor of mine actually suggested another program, which is perfect for me. And it was a master's in the UK. In the UK, they say development studies, but in the US, a lot of times it's called international development. So that through that course, essentially, I was the only health-focused person actually in the entire cohort. So I didn't have others who were studying health in particular. There were about 25 of us. But we were looking into issues of social and economic development. So issues that impact society from all different angles. So that kind of gave me the skills to be able to talk, even though I'm not an economist and I very much struggled in my economics courses, it gave me the ability to engage with an economist and say, I see that you did this modeling on how, on HIV financing and different kinds of types of HIV prevention, and really be able to understand that and kind of engage and then bring you back into the work that I do. So I did economics, I did anthropology, I did politics, and then I also took some, through their public health school, I took some global health related courses as well. So then kind of just bringing that back, wanting to have a career where, again, it gave me this opportunity to really engage with all different kinds of stakeholders in all different kinds of areas. And that's how I would say that I kind of landed in my current trajectory, because what I do currently, and I spoke to this a little bit briefly previously, is there's not one specific group that I can say that I work more predominantly with. There's fully with, it's all different kinds. And it's also taking a lot of the same information and being able to not only share it, but also like mutually kind of iteratively engage in it with different kinds of people. So how I potentially would have a conversation. So if we're talking about, I'll give a kind of an example. When I joined the organization that I work for, IPAC, in 2015, soon after I joined, a couple of months after I joined, the World Health Organization put out new treatment guidance. And the treatment guidance essentially said that if someone is living with HIV, if they take antiretroviral treatment, ART, then first of all, they will have a longer and healthier life. So it's good from like an individual perspective, and it's good from a prevention perspective, because if they're taking treatment consistently, then there is essentially a 0% chance that the virus can be transmitted. So this was like a huge actually kind of breakthrough, because it was not only like a treatment and care thing, but it was also a prevention thing. So because I was working kind of during the context of this major shift that had happened, how it was discussed and how it was kind of operationalized in different spheres was very much exciting for me, because I got to go to the official launch of these guidelines with the WHO and kind of learn from there and understand it from like a very technical perspective. I could support implementation of trainings for HIV care providers that kind of updated this guidance, and then also kind of working within the health system space to say, again, I'm not single-handedly doing this, but I get to be an observer or like a little piece of this process of like saying, okay, from a hospital level, the hospital, you have you have WHO policy, then you have that translates into national policy. And sometimes you have municipal policy, and then that goes to hospital policy. And from hospital policy, that is to translate to trainings to providers, and then actual implementation kind of by the providers. So kind of seeing at every step of this and all the different players, which includes the patients as well, or people in the community, just really being able to engage with all of those stages, and then also all of those different types of people. For me, was I realized like what I was most passionate about. And I think also being part of like a community like this one just also made me always feel like it was important to realize my role in a community setting.
Skipping ahead to the next question, Sindhu. I'm just kidding, but we are going to get to that. We do want to, because this is our community, and we do want to hear how you guys felt that the community contributed. And both you and Nish did kind of harp on it in terms of your initial inspiration and support system, which I think we just want to really just reel in towards the end again. But before we get back to that, I had a question for you, Sindhu, in regards to that initial inspiration. A lot of people can't go to trips on South Africa right now, hopefully another couple of months or a year. But for those people who are interested to get a kickstart in, say, public policies or health policies, how can they get started in a more municipal level? What do you suggest is a good route for somebody who's interested now, like a younger kid, high school, college, whatever it may be, middle school?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think one thing that was important to me, and I heard when Nisha was answering this question, your earlier question, I heard this in Nisha's answer too, is that sometimes it's nice to break the silos of the different types of careers and say, this is what I'm interested in, like, what can I create out of it? So yes, I'm trained as an engineer, for example, but these are the kinds of things to do, like, how can I accomplish that? So I think it doesn't have to be an international travel. That just happened to be kind of what kind of propelled me, I guess, into the career that I'm doing. But I think it's a lot of actually introspection and reflecting and thinking, you know, what are the kinds of opportunities that I seek? What are the kind of opportunities that most excite me in my personal life? What do I really like? Do I really enjoy being part of big communities? Do I enjoy doing kind of behind the scenes work? Do I enjoy being kind of this voice of advocacy? Do I enjoy public speaking? Like really taking all of those pieces of who you are in your essence, and then taking your kind of academic interests and then pulling them together and kind of saying, okay, so in an ideal world, like, this is what I want to be doing. And then from there, you can kind of see, okay, if this is what I want to be doing, like, what are the kinds of opportunities that I can potentially seek? So I think it's very, very difficult to have a very like narrow path and say, like, these are the steps that need to be taken to get from here to here. And I think that a lot, you can get to the same destination in a lot of different ways. I think if you're interested in kind of health policy, thinking about what within that area you're interested in. So if you're interested in, for example, more health policy or health implementation kind of at the municipal level, a good place to start is with your elected leaders, and also kind of looking at in most kind of city or state, county governments, there are different health initiatives. So you can just kind of figure out what are those health initiatives and who are leading those kind of health initiatives, whether it's Healthy Boston, or, you know, there are lots of different kinds of initiatives that are already going on. And I will say generally municipal health staff are always quite understaffed and very much welcoming of any kind of additional support. So that would kind of be my advice if you're kind of looking at a local municipal level, getting involved in that. Another thing is also, I think, looking at nonprofits and NGOs that are working in that space that you're interested in. And one thing also speaking to that I do want to touch upon is, I think a lot of times there's misunderstanding of what an NGO is or what a nonprofit is, and it's equated to charitable work. And I think it's also really important to kind of make that distinction, and charitable work is very important as well, but kind of make that distinction, because a lot of times when people or in the Indian community hear charitable work, I think there's this initial reaction of like, is that a job? Like, what are you doing? And I think it's important to make the distinction and say, like, it's more about, it's not affiliated with the government, which means it, in essence, is fully meant to serve the people in the communities that, you know, that they're working with, and kind of seeing what skills you have and what skills you can bring to that NGO or that nonprofit organization. Whether
No, it's super important.
Exactly. Fundraising, technical, scientific skills, a lot of research happening with NGOs and also in nonprofit organizations. So I think that's a great place to start as well, because then you're actually kind of starting at the community level and building up, especially if you're interested in local kind of municipal level health. If you're interested in, let's say, kind of big picture global health types of things, I think very much good to get up to date on all the policies that are out there. So kind of looking at the World Health Organization, looking at organizations like the UNAIDS, reading a lot of the reports and just getting a general understanding of you know, what's going on out there. And I think, at least for me, I think a good way to get involved with international health actually is also through NGOs and through nonprofit organizations, because there are a lot of them that are also globally oriented. There are a lot of internships available as well. A really good source that I have used in the past and I've recommended to others in the past to look for jobs, but also for internships, is called DevX. DEVEX, and it's like development, international development broadly, but a huge part of international development also includes health. So if you want to kind of find out ways to you know, intern with like an organization that's affiliated with the UN or with the UN, that's definitely a great source to kind of to go to.
That's actually a really good resource, DevX. I guess Brindavana team, if we can just post that on one of our media platforms, that's really cool to have an opportunity for. And the other thing that you mentioned in terms of municipal level, these guys always need help. You're so correct. And I'm sure you see it all the time. These guys are swamped with the amount of work, especially data accumulation in terms of paperwork, whatever it is. Any work is useful work for you to understand a little bit more. So reach out to your local municipals, reach out to your clerks, reach out to your mayors. They're all so willing and happy to get some enthusiastic young blood into their system to get them to do some work with them and learn a little bit more, because we don't have enough people there. And these guys are the most overworked people I think we have in our entire communities, and it's community-wide. It's in any country, every country. So thank you, Sindhu. And Hemant, we're gonna hop on to you before we start our last leg of this race over here. But I think people are loving what you guys are saying. So we'll have about like a 5-10 minute deviation for sure, but please take your time. Please explain everything you need to explain, because people are enjoying it. Hemant, I have a couple of questions for you as well. But prior to that, I just wanted to gear towards what exactly you felt was this propelling factor that brought you into this industry, and what your path was to get to where you are now.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the idea of iterating and pivoting came up a lot for me. Obviously, you know, grew up in a community that reveres education and knowledge, so that played a role. But I was groomed to be an engineer, and my first love was astrophysics, and then I was a computer science major, and then I had a few internships in the corporate world, and there's nothing against it. That's when I realized it wasn't for me. And so, but one of the really life-changing experiences was I graduated from Columbia engineering school in 2002, but the fall of my senior year, I just completed an internship. I was living downtown in a financial district, and 9/11 took place the first week of my senior year of college. And so a lot of us, that was a moment to kind of think about, just to kind of reevaluate just where we were in life, what we wanted to achieve. And it struck me at that moment, just people were experiencing various crises that I really needed to go. So I had an offer from a big company that I was interning at that summer, and I was doing IT in the financial services sector, and so I just turned it down. But I've done a lot of impulsive decisions in my life. That's probably a separate panel with no backup option. And they thought I was crazy because everybody's jobs were being rescinded and stuff after this thing happened. But that just gave me an idea to do some, and I have opportunity to do some soul searching and say, like, what do I really want to do? And I had done a lot of volunteer work in schools in the city, over those past 4 years. And I said, I think, and I hear there's a shortage of math and science teachers in New York City. And so I joined the New York City Teaching Fellows, which was a branch of Teach for America, right? And that was the pathway. That was the pathway just into education. And like within like 4 months of being at, a big inner city high school, just like you see in all the movies, but way worse. All my friends were like, oh, is it like this show? No, it's worse than that. Until I saw The Wire. It was like The Wire season 4. That's what it was like. But I knew I was going to be a lifer in education. That's when it hit me, And first there was some shock from my parents because I had 6 figures of undergrad education debt, and I was deciding to choose a $39,000 job as a teacher in New York City. But again, being part of the community, like every Kannada auntie and uncle I've ever met, and you've ever met, this is just a fact, was a teacher at some point in their life, and they love that stuff. So everybody I'd run into, whatever function, like, oh, you're a teacher, I heard about that, that's noble, that's great. Did you know, like, I taught 7th graders carom that one summer in 1974? Like, yeah, everybody has that story. So they loved it. So that was encouraging, and it was cool to be able to be a part of that. And so was a classroom teacher. Joined forces with one of my colleagues that joined the teaching fellows with me. We started writing a proposal to open our own charter school, which is essentially, it's a public school with no tuition, no selection criteria, but has to have an innovative approach, something that you're sort of piloting or innovating. And that was a 3-year process, actually. And so getting community support, writing all these things, figuring out budgets and models, and then we opened our doors in 2013. And still very invested in the school and that community, but I began to implement restorative practices at that school, and just really fell in love with that, and realized that as much pride as I take in this school that I literally gave blood, sweat, and tears to, I think my calling, or my next calling, because you'll probably switch careers like 7 times in your life on average or something. But anyway, my next calling is teaching restorative practices to the masses, so to speak. And that's why I decided to found, School Culture Solutions, and just go about it that way.
Thank you, Hemant. That's a really cool, fascinating path. I think TFA has been a big boon for teachers, especially in inner city areas, and especially for a lot of our community members. I don't think we ever knew how to get into teaching until TFA came around. And this is all you undergrads, especially, and high school students going into college. Actually, Hemant, if you want to explain a little bit more about the TFA and how that works, I think that's a really, really neat opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered, so TFA teaching fellows, these are considered, alternative certification programs. And so the primary means of going into education is like to major in education, right? And then you can get a job in that field. And in states like New York, you're expected to then get a master's in education and become certified and things like that. And these are alternate certification. At the time in 2002, there was a massive shortage of math and science teachers. So it was literally like just anybody could just walk in and you'd be like, please teach math or science here. A lot of that shortage has been, addressed in a lot of communities in the country, but this still remains an option. I'm not even 100% sure, because I know even a couple of years ago, the teaching fellows weren't placing new teachers in New York City. I think it was like the shortage had actually been addressed. So yeah, something to consider, but also just a traditional route of, do I want to go into education? I could major in that. I could still then branch out, go into nonprofit or go into anything, but that's a path to consider.
Awesome. And I want to get 2 more questions off of you because you did kind of touch base on a little bit of community, but we'll get to the community in a second. One of them was a really fun question. I'll say that for a little later. The first one is, how can we as a society unlearn that idea that people deserve to be punished for circumstances? Like, what can we do with our community? Because punishment is a very ingrained idea. I think all of us have at some point been in a lot of trouble and got a spank here and there for sure, or something of the sort. But like, how do we unlearn this idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, just sharing knowledge with each other is important. I was really pleasantly surprised. I ignorantly assumed, because I had never heard my parents or their friends mention anything about restorative justice or anything, that this just didn't take place in India, which was quite ignorant, because I was invited to this really amazing storytelling event in December, in which storytellers from the US and India who were all involved in restorative practices combined and shared. I think the organization in India was called Unfold, and they were just doing incredible work, and their CEO spoke there. I think they're based in Bangalore, but they're all over. And it's alive and well and thriving there, right? And like, why wouldn't it be? In fact, some of these practices are indigenous to the Indian subcontinent as well. So I think getting together, one thing that my family did that I hadn't even actively been a chance to be a part of, because they were meeting in person in New Jersey, was like a book club, right? And so that's a great way, especially for our parents' generation, but even ours, to get together, but also reading books that challenge us, right? So I remember I was invited one day because I had cited this book in my master's thesis, but they read The Karma of Brown Folk by Vijay Prashad. And my parents' generation had to contend with some realities that we just don't discuss in our community. Like, why did the US government in 1965 suddenly be like, hey, let's bring these people over who are all white collar and educated and to serve a very specific purpose and agenda? And that's why my dad came in 1970, and so did like all of your parents came around that time. Like that's his boom open, right? But answering honest questions about like our purpose, particularly just in the history of this country and in today's kind of racial dynamic as South Asian Americans, who often have a certain degree of privilege. So I think opening conversations like that is the key to really unlearning things like punishment, unlearning just racially oppressive ways of handling crime and harm in our community, and having open discussions like that, especially in the past year, right? Like even on WhatsApp, between the forwards that our like parents are obsessed with, like talking about colorism in our community or something, right? And like, I think those are the ways to unlearn some of this stuff.
Agreed. Intermediate question, because it just popped up. Just an example of one of the preventative and proactive measures that you take, which is like the breathing. What was that? What did you guys have them do? What did that kid and mother talk about in regards to calming themselves or relaxing themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we taught everything from yoga to like yogic breathing. I mean, we've taught guided meditations. We've taught, all of those kind of mindful based practices, under that umbrella. So yeah, I mean, other than going into some of the techniques, but really just the science of activating the parasympathetic nervous system to really alleviate stress, just really even teaching that community. Every time we're in stress, every time we're in fight or flight mode, like cortisol and chemicals are getting dumped through our bodies, and it's just really harmful for us, and we've never addressed it. So we started teaching these kids this term like mental hygiene. Like, would you ever go a week without using soap? No, that's gross. So why have you gone 16 years without ever scrubbing out all this gunk? You know what I mean? And so we started teaching that, and like they get into it. So things that you could use to focus before a test, breathing techniques, Ujjayi breathing, you might have heard of if you've ever taken a yogic class or something like that, things like that are known to, activate that part of our nervous system and providing clarity and focus.
And I think that information is useful in all communities. I think, especially ours, the mental cleansing or mental health is a taboo item, which we'll get to another day, but I think that is huge in every single community for sure. And the last question for you, Hemant, is how can we be better allies in the fight for restorative justice in communities of color that aren't ours? Which is a great question.
Yeah, I mean, one that could have a number of layers and depth to it. But honestly, my answer, I don't think would depart too much from what I was saying a few minutes ago. I think it starts by having really honest conversations within our community. That's one. And then two, there's a lot of education that we can do just about the history of South Asian Americans and Indian Americans in this country, which I like a lot of us thinks began like 40 years ago, but even goes back, 5-6 generations. So what has been that history? What were the experiences of farmers from India and California? What were the experiences of actually like Indian civil rights activists in New York City, like 70 years ago, 80 years ago, right? Understanding our place, I think, here, so that we don't feel so separate. So we don't actually subscribe to this model minority myth, and actually realize that we are interactive and vital contributors to this society. But if we imagine that we're separate, we're going to foster this elitist thing that a certain segment of the society wants us to, which is we're here to keep our head down, not get in trouble, go to Harvard or Princeton or Yale, become engineers, work for Google or Microsoft or whatever, and stay the heck out of everybody else's way. And if we subscribe to that, we'll continue to perpetrate these harmful beliefs. But if we have open dialogues, we challenge our parents, our aunties, our grandmothers, our cousins, our friends, we have book clubs, we study this history, and honestly, even try things like family circles. My family's done a couple of these, and they're really amazing. And I'm also learning things about like my uncle, who I've known for 41 years, but like I'm learning new things about, right? I think these are some of the ways, the starting points to dismantling just misinformation and potentially harmful beliefs.
I think we might need to start contracting you out to help create some of these family circles everywhere, because it is a hard conversation. I think a lot of families, especially children of a new world, right, struggle to have with a parent of another world. And it's not any ideologies incorrect or inaccurate. It's just a matter of there's different upbringings from different places that affect different mindsets. And it's just the nature of the beast. And I think open dialogue is the biggest key to all successes. So yeah, no, Hemant, you might get a lot of calls just being their circle manager, family circle manager around here as well. So thank you. And that will kind of take us to our last segment of the panelist discussion. I think bringing it all back together, you guys have all touched base on it. So you could reiterate, you could expand a little bit further if you want, but something for the children of our community, something that they can take away from is, how was it contributing to your success or your fallbacks, whatever it is, right? Either positive or negative. What did you find that you had to get past in terms of hurdle, or what did you find was supportive from our community? And I'm going to go in order, Hemant, Nisha, Sindhu. So please expand.
Oh man, I mean, I'll try to be brief because I was just talking, but I mean, the community's been tremendously supportive. I mean, honestly, look, what will I ever do that's as hard as like immigrating 10,000 miles away with like $2 in your pocket? So it kind of starts there. Like, how am I going to complain, right? How am I going to ask my dad for Jordans when I'm 9 when he's like, I didn't have chappals till I was 16? What am I going to say? So, I mean, honestly, like just the strength of our community and the adversity that they've conquered is a big part of that. And I think it, again, in my specific area, just a reverence for knowledge and we consider teachers godly in our culture. And so this idea that like, earnestly with pure intention, sharing knowledge with others is a beautiful thing to do in whatever form it takes, are two areas that have just been really supportive to me, among others. But I'll pass to the others to add on.
Nish, I'll put my 2 cents after all you guys go, but yeah, same idea. Not 2 cents, just kind of compiling what you guys are all saying. Go ahead, Nish. Yep.
So on the topic of community, I think just in hearing what Sindhu and Hemant had to say today, like it's such a testament to how diverse this community can be, and to really lean on each other to help, not only when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, but also as your career progresses, as your life progresses, as you're making these big decisions. And I think that's really the core value of having such a community. It is so diverse. There's something that brings us all together, right? obviously, whether it's language or culture or all sorts of things, but we all bring something completely different to the table. So tapping into that community, connecting to it some more, talking to others that maybe aren't in your inner circle, that's what's really going to help you grow. And for sure, I've had different types of communities throughout my whole career and throughout my whole life. And the theme that has helped me grow as a person is just being open about what I want and learning from other people. So just talk to people, and everyone, like Hemant said, like especially folks that are older than us, they've gone through things that we can't understand, but we certainly can learn from. And so just talk to people, and I'm sure that'll bring, at the very least, information and clarity for how you can path your own life.
Thank you, Nish. Sindhu, same question.
Yeah, so I know Hemant and Nisha spoke to community, and I alluded to that earlier as well. So I won't go into too much more detail about just really using the resources and the diverse experiences that kind of come out of our communities. And I'll speak to one other aspect, which if you're writing your CV, the technical term that you use is cultural competency. It's like a big keyword that people talk about. And basically what that boils down to is really the ability to not only understand other cultures, interact with other cultures, have that kind of cultural empathy, and how you build that is really broadening the communities that you're in, broadening the type of people that you work with, that you interact with. And I think we all are inherently lucky because out of no choice of our own, we are part of at least two different communities or two different cultures. So the breadth of experiences that we have, the experience of what it's like to spend a night in Aji's house compared to what it's like to go to a sleepover in your friend's house, like even those small things, it just gives you a much broader understanding of how people live and how things work, and being able to kind of take that into your workspace, particularly. It doesn't actually even have to be an international job. For me, because I work with a lot of people internationally, that's how it kind of plays out. But it can actually just be recognize the diversity of the people and kind of how to interact with the different people. And I'll give a short anecdote of an experience that I had. So at one point this was before the current job I had, I was doing a research study on treatment adherence. So a topic that sounds like very clinical kind of in nature, but one of the things that we were doing for HIV treatment adherence. So one of the things that we were doing is it's called gender sensitivity training for key community members. So that would include, for example, people in the church. This was in South Africa, so it could include people in the church. It could include other key leaders and members in the community. It could include elected officials, like people who had kind of influence, particularly in their communities. And what we were trying to do through the genders, it was called a gender sensitivity training, is bring to the surface some underlying social conditioning that we have when we think about gender. And then that was kind of translated into when we're talking about keeping people, or particularly people living with HIV, in care. What are the kind of things that we need to think about? So that's kind of broad context. But the anecdote in this is, during this training, I was the only non-South African there. I was also the only non-Black South African, or the only non-Black person there. And they had this activity where they asked everybody to either think of a story or a poem or a song or something in kind of in media or in popular culture, in their literature, that wasn't necessarily inherently wrong or bad, but it just gave some insight into how gender was seen in that society. So everyone went around saying these, sharing these beautiful stories, beautiful pieces of either poetry or songs or this or that, and they got to me, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm very much out of place. Like, what do I do? And I got up. I won't sing for you now because I'm actually not a very great singer, but I got up and sang the song Kundre Nintre Aondenyana, like in Kannada, full, like clapping, like everyone was clapping for me. And I think even though like what I brought to the table was so different than everyone else who was part of that training, just being able to like contribute in my own way through my own experiences like helped me really connect and gain the trust and just the camaraderie of everyone in that group who I was working with. So I think just the fact that we have inherently, by being Kannadigas, by being Indians, like by being people who live in the US, we inherently actually have such a breadth of experience and understanding of differences between people that we should very much be using that to our advantage.
I love it. You're lucky that, you know, we're almost running out of time, or else I would have had you sing that song. But for the sake of you, I guess. And these are such amazing points, guys, right? Like, Hemant, like what you brought up, I think the biggest adversity that we see as a current generation is not nearly as ludicrous as what our parents have gone through and been through. So children of the new age, don't take your parents for granted. Don't assume that they don't know a lot of things. They've done crazier things than you. They've done a lot of stuff that is so useful to them and useful to you. So give them a chance to listen, hear them out, and have that discussion circle with them, and learn something, right? Learn something from them, because they have a lot to offer. And Nish, like as you said, is just that community feel to provide that information to you guys on a regular basis. There are people who, like, you figured out about Emory because somebody from BSN talked to you about it, and that open conversation that you're willing to have with this society. They have other resources, and they're very resourceful to provide you this intellect. And Sindhu, like, I think what you touched upon is, we are all minorities in this country. Everybody is, no matter what they tell you. They were a minority at one point in time, and there are only a very few indigenous people left here. So majority of this country is a minority, and that in itself gives us a big stronghold on being sympathetic and empathetic to a lot of different people, a lot of different communities. And I think that allows us this big boon to be so culturally diverse already. We already come with two cultures ingrained within ourselves, which is Kannadiga / Indian and American. So utilize that and use those experiences that you guys have been growing up with, and make the most of it wherever you guys go. And the other thing that our community provides is this, right? What these three phenomenal speakers have been able to provide to us is some guidance, some method of, hey, this is what you can do. And they're willing to come back over and over again. I asked them multiple times, this was supposed to happen back in June. They all said yes. And then this was supposed to happen back in July. They all said yes. This was supposed to happen this week. I asked a couple of them last week. I was like, are you guys still done? They're like, yes. So it's their availability and willingness to contribute back to the society is so key for all of our future generations to have so much to look up to. And I don't know if I shared the flyer with the three of you guys, but we titled this saga, They Came, They Saw, They Conquered. And I think you guys embody that entirety of a phrase. You guys put your mind to something, and not only did you do it, you excelled at it. And we appreciate having people like you to inspire us, like all of us, not even just the younger kids, myself included. And I'm sure our parents are all just loving what they're seeing over here and getting inspired even now to learn from you guys. So we appreciate all of the hard work that you guys have put out there, and being available for our future generations and our older generations to be inspired and learn something new and have an open mind about everything. So thank you to the three of you guys for making your time out for today to save about 2 hours to hang out with me and share a little bit of what you guys are doing. And I appreciate that genuinely. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Sahas. You have been an incredible host. So thank you for really listening and asking amazing questions. Congrats to the graduates, and shout out to the other two panelists, because I also learned learned a lot today, definitely outside of the bubble that I live in. So this was awesome for me as well.
Yeah, thanks to you guys as well. And yeah, as Suhas mentioned, always happy to stay in touch with folks interested in anything they heard today that I could add some information to.
Yeah, I just want to say that again. Thank you, Suhas, for coordinating this and for inviting all three of us. It's been as educational for me just to even hear from the other panelists and to be led by you, Suhas, for our questions to be led by you, as I'm sure it was for a lot of the students who are on the line. And we'll also reiterate, I'm happy, like later on, if anyone wants to reach out directly to me. So as I assume if you want to share, mine or our contact information, because I know that I would not have been on the path that I'm at if it weren't for people from various communities supporting me, guiding me. And if I could even be like a piece of that process for someone else, it would be very rewarding. So thanks for giving us all of this opportunity to chat with you.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, no, we will probably be touching base with you guys. Sindhu, that was devx.com, right? We're just going to post a couple of these links that we talked about. Hemant and Nish, if you guys think of anything that would be useful in terms of what you guys are even up to, that would be awesome. And then just an email that you guys don't mind being semi-spammed with. Our guys are usually pretty nice about it. So just share that with me, and then I'll share that with our Brindavana team just to post to this particular society and community. If they ever wanted to reach out to you guys for any more advice, help, interest, questions, anything else. So thank you guys. At this point, we will be going towards a tribute to our graduates. So you guys are more than welcome to hang back and sit tight if you want. Keep your videos off in case you want to go out and go get a drink or whatever. But you're also more than welcome to step out, and we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. So everyone, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ವಿಶೇಷಗಳು ಏನೇನ್ ಉಪಯೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದೋ ನಮ್ಗಿನ್ನ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಂಡ್ ನಮ್ ಮುಂದಿನ ಮಕ್ಳಿಗೆ ಏನೇನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದೋ, ಏನೇನ್ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ಯೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅದೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು 10-20 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೇದ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೃಂದಾವನ ತಂಡದ ಮೂಲಕ. So we thank you for listening, and kids, we love that you guys are participating and graduating and succeeding, because I hear a lot of success stories already. But these are some things that you guys can look forward to, and this is the future, and the future is bright, and we're excited for it. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead to the video portion. I might be flubbing a little bit with it because it's on a different format, so just bear with me for a second there.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ನಾನು ಪದ್ಮಿನಿ ಹೇಮಂತ್, ಬೃಂದಾವನ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ತಂಡದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಗ್ರಾಜ್ಯುಯೇಟ್ ಅಭಿನಂದನಾ ಸಮಾರಂಭಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾರ್ದಿಕ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಮಿಡಲ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ನಿಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ವರೆಗೂ ಉತ್ತೀರ್ಣರಾದ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಅನೇಕ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳು. ತಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಯಾವ ಯಾವ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರಗಳನ್ನು ಆಯ್ಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರೋ ಆ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ತಮಗೆ ಯಶಸ್ವಿ ಸಿಗಲಿ, ಕೀರ್ತಿ ಸಿಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ದೇವರಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥನೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ತಪ್ಪದೆ ಸಮಾಜ ಸೇವೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈ ತೊಡಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ವಿನಂತಿ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೀಗೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಟಿಸ್ತಾ, ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಹಾಕೊಂತ ಸೇಫ್ ಆಗಿ ಇರಿ. ಇನ್ನು ಕೆಲವೇ ದಿನಗಳಿದೆ, ಬೇಸಿಗೆ ರಜೆಗಳು ಮುಗಿಯುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಸರ್ತಿ ಹೈಬ್ರಿಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಸಪೋಸ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ಗೆ, ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಂಗಿದ್ರೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಸೇಫ್ ಆಗಿರಿ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಹಾರ್ಟಿ ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್. ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಮಗಳನ್ನ ಬಿಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಕ್ಯಾಲಿಫೋರ್ನಿಯಾಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಬರ್ಕ್ಲಿಗೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಹೌ ಎಕ್ಸೈಟೆಡ್ ಆಲ್ ದಿ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್. ಸೊ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಹಾರ್ಟಿ ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಸ್ಟೇ ಸೇಫ್. ವಿ ಆಲ್ ಆರ್ ವಿತ್ ಯು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Hello all. Ananya, class of 2021 graduate of the Rutgers University in Cell Biology and Neuroscience. It's a proud moment for all of us. So she's been such a great adjusting child. So she's went through a lot of changes, but still she's come out so well and so good. So now 5 ವರ್ಷ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ I still remember how we made plans to move back to Bangalore and so she adjusted there. She also took care of her little sister when she was very small. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಕೂಲೆಲ್ಲ she did very well. ಆಮೇಲಿಂದ ನಾವು ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಪಸ್ ಬರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರಿಲೊಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅಂದಾಗ ಅಗೈನ್ she came with me. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ನಾನು ಅವಳು ಇಬ್ಬರೇ 1 ವರ್ಷ ಇದ್ವಿ. Then she came to 10th grade. ಅವಾಗ she adjusted again very well. It was a very hard time to adjust coming into the middle of high school, so she did well. And again, not only that, after 1 year in Montgomery, we again moved to South Brunswick. Again, there was a period of adjustment. She did all that and then went to college. Again, did well in the college, adjusted well, made new friends and that. So overall, I'm so happy she has reached this stage, and again, I wish her all the best for the future.
Hey guys, so first of all, congratulations to my sister. She has finally graduated through such a hard time, and she has helped me through so much, from potty training to helping me drive right now. And she's such a relatable person and my go-to-go person to ask for advice. And I love her so much, and congratulations to her.
ಅನನ್ಯ ಒಳಗೂ ಹೊರಗೂ ತುಂಬ ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಯುವತಿ. ಅವಳ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಅನುಕಂಪ ಭರಿತವಾದ ಮನಸ್ಸು. ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕಂಡ್ರಂತೂ ತುಂಬ ಪ್ರೀತಿ. ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ
Overall, I'm so happy she has reached this stage, and again, I wish her all the best for the future.
Hey guys, so first of all, congratulations to my sister. She has finally graduated through such a hard time, and she has helped me through so much, from potty training to helping me drive right now. And she's such a relatable person and my go-to-go person to ask for advice. And I love her so much, and congratulations to her.
ಅನನ್ಯ ಒಳಗೂ ಹೊರಗೂ ತುಂಬ ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಯುವತಿ. ಅವಳ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಅನುಕಂಪ ಭರಿತವಾದ ಮನಸ್ಸು. ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕಂಡ್ರಂತೂ ತುಂಬ ಪ್ರೀತಿ. ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಈಗ 6 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ವೀಗನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾಳೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಅವಳು ಈಗ ಕರಿಯರ್ನೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಜನಸೇವೆಗೆ ಮಾಡೋ ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕರಿಯರ್ನೇ ಆರಿಸ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ. ಅದಲ್ಲದೆ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್, ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್, ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಸ್ಟೈನಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾಳೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾಳೆ. ಒಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಇಂಥ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಮಗುವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಭಗವಂತನಿಗೆ ಕೋಟಿ ಕೋಟಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು.
Hi, my name is Ananya, and I just graduated from Rutgers University with a major in exercise science and a minor in entrepreneurship. Congratulations to all of the new graduates. But to answer the first question about navigating through the pandemic has definitely been difficult and different for everybody. But I think that whole year of quarantine has taught me how to take a step back in life and just appreciate all the little things like when we're stuck at home with family, by ourselves. And I think it taught me a lot about myself. But what kept me going was basically having a creative outlet for myself. I was able to find small things that made me happy, and just incorporating it into my life creatively is what kept me going. And what I'm most excited about is, I think, meeting new people and making new connections and figuring out things for myself and finding my own path is what I'm truly excited about. And to all of the next graduates, enjoy college. It's super, super fun. And just take it how it goes, because things can get really stressful, but just remember that you don't have to always have everything figured out, and everything will come to you. And I truly believe in the idea of manifesting. So really start putting out your dreams and visions out there and just watch it come to life. But thank you.
ಹಾರ್ಟಿ ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನಿ. ನೀನು ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಜುಯೇಷನ್ ಮುಗಿಸಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಖುಷಿ ಇದೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಅಭಿಮಾನ ಇದೆ. 4 ವರ್ಷದ ಡಿಗ್ರಿನ 3.5 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದೀಯಾ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಕರಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ ನೀ ತಗೊಂಡೆ. ನಿಂದೇ ಆದ ಒಂದು ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಚಾನಲ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಾಪ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಟನ್ಸಿ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ತಗೊಂಡೆ. ಸತರಂಗಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊರಿಯೋಗ್ರಾಫರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನೀನು ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳು ಕೂಡ ನೀನು ಭಾಗವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. ವಿಶ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯು.
ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ಗ್ರಾಜುಯೇಷನ್ ಅನಿಕಾ. ನೀನು ಭಾಳ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ಯಾ ಮತ್ತು ನನಗೂ ಭಾಳ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಯಾ. ನಿನ್ನ ಏಜ್ಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ. ಸೊ ಗುಡ್ ಲಕ್.
ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಆಲ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡು, ನಿನಗೆ ಅನಿಸಿದ್ದು ನಿನಗೆ ಸಿಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ಆಶಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Hi Ananya. It is hard to believe that your time at Rutgers has come to an end. Well, at least for now. It is truly amazing to see how everything that you chose to do there, from SAPA to entrepreneurship to exercise science, truly embodies you. I can totally see all of this coming together in a very beautiful way ahead of you. I wish I could be there to celebrate this milestone, but amongst all the other Miss celebrations, we will add this one to the list and we will celebrate it very soon in some country or the other. Until then, a tight hug, and in addition, congratulations to all the other graduates. I really miss your faces, miss spending time with you all, but I'm sure whenever we do meet again, it will be super exciting. So until then, all the best to all of you.
Hi, my name is Anithej and I'm a part of the class of 2021, and I graduated this year from South Brunswick High School. And so one big challenge that I had this year, and I'm sure everyone else did, was the online schooling and virtual learning. And this is completely different than learning from a classroom. And one thing that I did think that was beneficial from this is it gave us a much more appreciation for human connection. And I feel like getting to see people again, in terms of later in the year, and then getting to see people at graduation was a really nice experience. And it really made me more grateful to being able to see people's faces and actually speak to them in real life, and the human connections that are so important, which we build throughout this community. And so one thing that I'm looking forward to in terms of my future endeavors is that I'm really looking forward to going to the West Coast in college, because for one, the weather there is really nice. And then New Jersey, it's different weather every day. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And I'm also looking forward to making new connections and meeting new people and trying new clubs, new activities, and going out of my comfort zone. And that's something that I've really tried to do throughout high school, and I want to also do in college. And I want to also continue on things that I've picked up on, still love sports. I want to do sports there, maybe intramural sports, something like that. And so some advice that I give to future graduates is, if you have a passion, the one thing that you have to do is you have to keep working towards it. And the one thing that I would also recommend is to never take anything too seriously. Make sure that you're also having time to do things you enjoy and that you really like. And so also make sure that you have a strong work ethic. You're going to definitely need that. And continue towards your goals and aspirations. And I wish you the best of luck.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಶ್ರೀಧರ್ ಬಾಣವರ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು.
ನಾನು ವಿನುತಾ.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮಗನ ಹೆಸರು ಅನಿತೇಜ್ ಭಾರದ್ವಾಜ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು. ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಅವನು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಬರ್ಕ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಭಾಳ ಸಂತೋಷದ ವಿಚಾರ. ಅನಿತೇಜ್, ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್. ವಿ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ಪ್ರೌಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು. ಎಲ್ಲಾದರೂ ಇರು, ಹೇಗಾದರೂ ಇರು, ಸಂತೋಷವಾಗಿರು. ಮತ್ತು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಹುಡುಗರು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿಗೆ ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಶುಭ ಹಾರೈಕೆಗಳು. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Congratulations, Anithej. Graduation is an exciting time. It's both an ending as well as a beginning. It's warm memories of the past and big dreams for the future. May your graduation be just the beginning of many successes in life and the beginning of a new journey.
ಟೈಮ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಫ್ಲೈಸ್. ಇನ್ನೂ ನೀನು ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಪ್ರೀ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಜುಯೇಷನ್ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದ ಹಾಗಿದೆ. ಬೈ ಗಾಡ್ಸ್ ಗ್ರೇಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹಾರ್ಡ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ವಾಸ್ ರಿವಾರ್ಡೆಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಹೆಡೆಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಟು ಬರ್ಕ್ಲಿ. ವಿ ಆರ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ಪ್ರೌಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು. ಕಂಗ್ರಾಟ್ಸ್ ಅಗೈನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಿಶ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ ದ ವೆರಿ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್. ಸ್ಟೇ ಫೋಕಸ್ಡ್, count your blessings and be happy in life. Wish you a bright future and a very happy graduation to all the grads of 2021. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗಲಿ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Hi, Annie. Congrats on graduating. I'm so proud of you and so excited to see all the things that you're going to do once you get to college. Best of luck for this new chapter of your life, and I'm sure that you'll crush it just like you have for the past 18 years. Looking forward to seeing you do big things, and best of luck.
Namaskara.
Namaskara.
Hello, my name is Kamla and this is my husband Raghunath. We live in Princeton. Our daughter Archana Raghunath graduated this year with a master's in public health from Rutgers University and was inducted to the Delta Omega Honor Society. We are extremely proud of her achievements and accolades. Always a committed child and focused on her dreams. She has outdone herself through hard work and curiosity to learn, through research and experience. With her commitment to using her knowledge to serve the poor and the sick and serving as a frontline worker, she will be pursuing her MD in Louis Card School of Medicine in Temple University, Philadelphia, starting in August. As we send her off to pursue her dreams, we wish her the very best and can't emphasize enough how much we love her. Congratulations, Archana.
Congratulations, Archana.
Go find your dreams and bring home laurels and make us, your family and friends, and your Kannada Kuta community proud as you've always done. Thank you, Yuva Brindavana, for encouraging our Kannada Kuta youth of New Jersey. And we want to wish all the graduates of 2021 congratulations and very best wishes as they pursue their future and their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
So what I learned through this pandemic is two things. Don't take things for granted and give yourself a reality check sometimes. So what I mean by taking things for granted is time spent with friends and family. So I felt like the last 2 years went by really quickly since we were at home the entire time. So I just think you should value all those moments and those memories because, especially now, since we are graduated, we won't know if we'll meet those friends and even family again and share those same memories and moments again. And by giving yourself a reality check, I just mean check to see whether you're accomplishing your goals or striving to become a better version of yourself. So in my case, last year I felt like I lost my work ethic and I didn't need to do anything because it was all remote and I just felt like I was becoming lazy. But this year in preparation for college, I decided to learn to have a better work ethic, work better and smarter, even though I should be having senioritis. So that's where I felt like I gave myself a reality check. What I'm most excited about is, I would say, becoming independent. Even though it is a little bit scary to make all those important financial decisions by yourself, say moving away and becoming less dependent on the parents and making my own money is pretty exciting. And my advice for future years to come is, like I said before, cherish all those small moments and don't take anything for granted.
Hi Kashyap Putta, congratulations. We are very happy to see you graduate from high school. You did all the hard work staying up late at night. I remember seeing your sleepless or sleep deprived face several times. So you handled the pandemic well by doing remote schooling. I'm very glad to see all your hard work coming to fruition. Enjoy the summer holidays before you get busy with college education.
Congratulations, Kashyap. We are very proud of you. We wish you all the success in your future and achieve your goals successfully.
Congratulations, Kashyapana. I will miss you when you go to college. I hope you have a great and successful year.
We love you.
Nachiketa, congratulations on your high school graduation.
Hi Nachi, congratulations. We both are very happy with what you have accomplished. I still remember the first day in Bangalore when you were just 3 years old. I took you to daycare. Your first day of school. How anxious you were and how much you cried when the teachers took you into the school. But then you outgrew that anxiousness and was happy for a while. But it became clear to us that you are a nervous starter. You are anxious every time there is something new for you to start. From the first time you ever sat on a chair, or how terrified you were when your first tooth started wiggling, or at that time when you were selected to swim at the Junior Olympics. You were always large for your age, and people thought you were much older than what you actually were. But I don't think I've said this enough. You were always a sweet little boy and behaved your age all the time.
Hi Nachi, I'm very happy you're going off to college, although I will miss you very much. I got so scared because I thought you were going to be in an out-of-state college, but now that you're going to Rutgers, which is in-state, I'm very happy that you won't be so far away. You're not only my brother, but you're a best math teacher, the best swim coach I know, and you are an awesome, awesome person to be with.
From the time you were a child, you've been very good in whatever you set your mind to. So please know that you are going to have all our support in whatever you may venture to do, be it in art or be it in sport or whatever you want to do with your life. I'm quite confident you're going to be damn good at it. So good luck with everything.
Happy you got into all colleges you applied for, and then after much deliberation you chose a college that you initially wanted, and I'm really happy with how all of this has panned out. But I am so proud of you finding your tribe in high school. These are friendships that will last for a long time, and I hope you continue to nurture and grow your tribe wherever you go.
All the best, Nachi!
Hi everyone. I first want to say huge congrats to the class of 2021. This year has been strange to say the least, and I think just kind of going through this year and living through this pandemic has just made me realize how blessed I am, that my biggest concern, my biggest struggle, I guess in that sense, was how I would be bored staying at home and being at home all the time. And I'm so blessed and grateful that I got to continue my education and complete this year. And my parents were still able to work, and we were able to continue living our lives when a lot of other people were really struggling because they didn't have these virtual formats and platforms, and their lives were changed completely drastically. So I think that was my biggest kind of realization, opened my perspective on life, and I wanted to give back more, and I continue to in the future. Speaking of the future, I'm really excited to be attending the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign this fall. I'm going to be attending the business school, and I plan on majoring in finance. And I think I'm really excited. I know it's really far, but I'm really excited just to kind of get a new perspective on life and kind of get out of New Jersey and see the world outside and see all the opportunities that it has to offer. And I think my biggest piece of advice for future graduates, future seniors is don't try to live up to anyone else's expectations, but at the same time, hold yourself up to high standards. I think that's the biggest thing for me, because so many people tell you different things. So many people will try to influence your opinion and the way that you go about college apps, the way that you go about choosing colleges and all of that. But make sure you hold yourself up to a standard that you think is right for you, because if you match that standard and when you match that standard, the pride you will feel is just unmatched and unimaginable. And I think just good luck.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ. ನಿಧಿ, ಅವರ್ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸೆಸ್, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸೋ ಪ್ರೌಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಹರ್. ಅವಳು ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಶೈ kid with a lot of stranger anxiety from the very beginning has now really grown into a very outspoken, social, outgoing, disciplined, mature young lady.
ಅವಳು ಸಣ್ಣವಳಿದ್ದಾಗಿಂದನೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ನ ಎಂಬ್ರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ್ಳು. ದೇವರು ಹಿರಿಯರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೌರವ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ಲು. Even to the extent that, giving back to the society was very high ever since a very tender age also. She's been blessed with a good hair, and San Hudgi Iddaga she has donated her hair towards the Cancer Society and made all of us very proud. She continues her journey from a charity perspective as well as giving back to the society, and also embracing our culture that giving, sharing is believed to be a vital part of our culture.
ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅವಳು she has been involved with LFTM and participating in the fundraisers, and also her entire Arangetram gifts, she herself was more than willing to donate it to LFTM. And she also helped with Feeding America and the contribution towards that, which is again a big portion of her feeling that she needs to give back to the community.
So even from the academics perspective also, she enrolled into the robotics club. So robotics club ಒಳಗೆ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. Montgomery School ಒಳಗೆ robotics club is a very prime, one of the prime clubs. It's very well-known clubs. So she joined the club, she embraced it, finally to become the captain of the robotics team. She gained a lot of praise and appreciation from the coach as well as from the juniors who were working with them. Both the coach and also some of the parents of the kids, junior kids, they reached out to us and said that she had such a great influence on the team and she was such a great mentor. She even got an award for a best mentor in her junior year as well.
ಅವಳಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಬ್ಬಗಳು, our Indian culture, dressing up for the occasions, getting ready, arshna ಕುಂಕುಮ ಕೊಡೋದು ಮನೆಗೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲ, all those things, like we didn't really have to tell her to do ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ. ಅವಳಾಗಿನೇ she used to be very observant. She was very, very keenly observing things that were happening around, and she picked up. And she in addition to that, she likes Bollywood music, she likes dancing, and she loves singing. So she has been a very easy child to raise. Nidhi, in the true sense, like our treasure antane helbodu. We are extremely very proud of her, and we are excited for her to graduate from high school and take this next step in her life. ಸೊ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮನಿಂದ ಹಾರ್ದಿಕ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು, ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ವಿ ವಿಶ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ ದ ವೆರಿ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ಯುವರ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಎಂಡೆವರ್ಸ್. ಲವ್ ಯು ಕಂದ.
In every parent upbringing, they say parents have a big hand. Of course, Malini had a very big influence in her life, but we both feel that she grew up just fine. She learned to make good decisions. She was independent with her decision making, and we have been able to learn something more from her. We wish her all the best in all her future endeavors. We request all of you to please bless her in all her future endeavors as well. She needs that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, congratulations Ritvik. Congratulations on getting admitted to Kelly School of Business for majoring in finance. I know you always wanted to go there. and we are very proud of you for all your efforts. I know you put in a lot of efforts all by yourself, and you are very proactive and very energetic. And since beginning, I've always seen that anything that you take up, you're very consistent and do a very good job of that. So I'm pretty sure you'll do very good, and you'll be consistent with your efforts, and you'll be very good at your college, and will have a very bright future. So congratulations again, baby. We're always with you, and we are very, very proud of you. Love you, baby.
Hey everyone, my name is Sagar. For those of you who don't know me, I just graduated from Rutgers in May from the business school, and I double majored in supply chain and business analytics. Before I get started answering some of these questions, I just wanted to shout out all of the other people who just graduated alongside with me. It definitely wasn't easy going through virtual school for our last year, and it's definitely a big accomplishment for anyone who's done so. So just wanted to recognize everyone else who's done the same thing that I have. So the first question was, what were some of the biggest lessons that I learned in the pandemic? So I had a bit of a unique situation coming into the pandemic. I was working full-time and taking classes. And what I noticed really was your smaller habits really do define your life. So I wasn't really eating well, I wasn't exercising, and I wasn't really getting outside and getting active as well. And all of those things really contributed to like a lower mood and less productivity. And so I think for the second half of the pandemic, I really tried to prioritize those things. And it really did wonders for myself, my confidence, my performance in school and in any other areas. So it's something that you hear all the time, but it's very important to make sure that you're taking care of your health and your social well-being as well, reaching out to friends, keeping those relationships intact. And I think me doing those things versus not doing those things made a world of difference in my life. So the pandemic definitely added a lot of focus in those areas for me. So I was able to see how doing them versus not doing them can drastically change your life. So that was really what I learned from the pandemic. Also, keeping a schedule and making sure to prioritize around what you need to get done is very important. Everything was happening in the same place for all of us. We all had to take school, work, maintain our friendships as well, all from home. So keeping a schedule and staying on top of all of that was really important for me as well. So the second question is what I was most excited about for my future endeavors. So I think one of the things that I really won't be missing from school as I continue on is really competition, I would say. So really, competing with your peers, grades, deadlines, all of that. So in the real world, you're not going to really have any of that. It's really up to you to choose what you want to focus your life on, whether it's your career, whether it's your family and friends, whether it's investing or anything else like that. So I'm really excited to kind of just push the horizons of what I think I can do. And really just live a life where there's no deadlines, where there's no, last minute due dates or anything, where you can go as far as your ambition takes you. So that's definitely what I'm really excited about. And I'm also just excited to, get out there, be independent on my own as well. And so this also ties into my last question, which was what advice I have for any of the graduates that will come after me. And I really think, again, so competition can be a really unhealthy thing in school. A lot of people feel the need to choose certain careers, take certain internships, or just do certain things in general because of their peers or because they feel like they need to get ahead. So I think the pandemic helped me in this regard. It allowed me to slow down, reevaluate, what are some of the things I really want to focus on? Is this career path right for me? Like, why am I taking this job? So really take some time, because your career is a big part of your life. So it's important to give it the attention it deserves. Think about like what it is you want to do. And why you want to do it. And money really shouldn't be one of the top reasons, because especially early in your career, it's all about learning. You really want to make sure you're getting a lot of different experiences, because when it does come time for you to earn that money, those experiences, that breadth of knowledge that you will have acquired will be much more important than how much you've earned up to that point. So definitely make sure that you're learning whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's in and out of the classroom. Really take some time to explore your interests and make sure whatever you're doing after graduation, your career or anything else, just make sure it's something that keeps you inspired. Thank you.
Sagar, my dear, big congrats on graduating. Wow. And wishing you all the success and happiness world has to offer. We still remember the first day of your school. On that day, we were so nervous to send you away from us. We were all literally crying. But deep inside, we always knew you will come out as a winner. You have worked so hard to get here. Here you are, our confident, handsome son. From my life experience, here is the piece of advice I would like to share with you. No matter how successful you become, never lose sight of yourself. Always be humble. Always strive to avoid stagnation by becoming too comfortable with a situation or giving up on a challenging problem. Sagar, I'm so excited for your next chapter in your life. Thank you for listening. Love you, Sagar. Best wishes.
Congratulations on graduating, bro. I don't know how I'm going to survive this next year without you. I know you're going to go on to do really big things in the future with Deloitte and even past that. I hope you become like a product manager one day, strive for those goals, work for big tech, Google, and then eventually create your own startups. I know that's been one of your goals. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to survive without you. These next coming years is going to be tough. Even when you go out in the night, I don't know, it gets really boring at home. And I know you're going to do big things, and I'm really excited for it.
Shashank is already becoming emotional.
Very good. How much time do I have? Okay.
Yeah.
Sagar, hearty congratulations on graduation. And actually, we are really proud of you. We are happy for you, and then best wishes as you begin the long next chapter of your or next phase of your life. So again, big congratulations, and we are really truly happy for you. Again, when mommy was kind of looking at your old pictures, and I thought, okay, time flies, and actually it is real. It's no more a saying, because we saw you grow from a child or infant sitting in the rear-facing chair seat to the front-facing seat to the booster seat to the passenger seat, and finally you are in the driver's seat. So go great guns, and then you are running your own race. You are not in competition with anyone. So just make sure that you pretty much stay focused on what you want to do, and be humble. You have got the foundation. You have a personality, and you have a character. You have values and beliefs and things of that sort. So this foundation is given to you just to excel in life. So again, you are a strong pillar to your mom and a role model to your brother. And you try to teach one or two things to me as well. And of course, one day I'll be able to dunk on you or at Veterans Park or somewhere else. But definitely that's in my bucket list as well. So, but otherwise, we are really happy for you. And then, just go great guns. Again, remember to, just compete yourself and, with yourself and with your former self. And you're not in competition with anyone. Just be humble, and then remember, gratitude pays. So, there are a lot of people who helped you directly or indirectly to get you where you are today. And then, you just lean on others and make sure that you tell others that you are there for them. So that's how you kind of, lead your life as an example. So again, we know that you are going to, reach great heights, and you have pretty much everything you need to succeed in life. So we just be staying afar and then watch you reach your goals and become a great human being. So once again, go kiss the world. All the best.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye. Bye.
So one thing I learned about navigating life through this pandemic was the importance of being optimistic. So this pandemic was really hard for a lot of people, including myself. It really affected my personal and professional life. In terms of my professional life, prior to the pandemic, I was working completely in person in the lab on my thesis. And once the pandemic hit, I kind of had to pack everything up and move back home. And I worked remotely for the entire year on my thesis. So, plans did change in that sense. In terms of my personal life, just like many others, I didn't really get to see a lot of my close loved ones, including family and friends, and in some cases for more than a year. So what really got me through these difficult and troubling times was having a more optimistic outlook on life and kind of reassuring myself that everything was going to turn out okay post-pandemic. In terms of my future endeavors, I'm really just excited to start out my professional career. So in a couple of days, I'll be moving out to Cincinnati to work at a contract research organization. And I'm really grateful and appreciative of the fact that I get to work in the medical device and imaging industries. And through this new job, I'm hoping to build my technical skills and really contribute to some meaningful projects. And a few years down the line, I'm hoping to start actually leading R&D projects and take on a more managerial position. If I had to give advice to the next set of graduates for years to come, I would definitely say one of the biggest things that helped me was creating a plan for myself. So figuring out what you want to do right after college. For me, that meant grad school. And then figuring out what you want to do a few years down the line. Researching and figuring out what steps you need to take to achieve your goals and kind of incorporating those steps into your plan. That being said, I think it's also important to be prepared for things to not go according to plan and learning to be flexible. So, with the pandemic, like myself, I'm sure many of you have kind of had a wrench thrown into your goals and your plans and kind of have to learn to be okay with that and not be afraid of going off plan.
My name is Saurav Vidyadhara, and I'm going to the University of Maryland this fall. The thing I learned most during the pandemic was the importance of time management. I couldn't manage my time well before the pandemic, and once the pandemic happened, I lost my motivation to really learn or study, and I had issues managing my time. So I think staying motivated and being able to manage my time are probably the most important things that I learned from the pandemic. As far as what I'm excited for my future endeavors, honestly, just leaving the state is exciting for me. It's going to be my first time away from home for like a long duration of time. And I'm excited to like learn from a new environment, especially being close to DC. There's a lot of exciting things I can do. And as far as giving advice to anyone who's starting the college application process, know what you want to do and know what excites you. Only you know that, and nobody else around you will know that. So make sure you know exactly what you want to do and what makes you happy, and make sure that you're passionate about what you want to do, or else the application process won't be easy. Thank you.
Hi Saurav. First of all, congratulations Puta. This is one of the proudest moment of my life. You have made us proud many times, and all this 15 years of your education. You have done lot of good things. You have learnt a lot from a small child to a young adult. Tumba, you have come a long way, baby. Your passions, and you have achieved at least something out of your passion and everything. And all I can say is this is just a beginning, and there is much more for you to achieve, and lot of things are still waiting for you to go and get that. I know that you will definitely do it. You are a go-getter, and make all of us proud again in many different ways. And once again, congratulations, Saurav. Love you, Kanda. Always think that Mama is there for you. Love you.
Hey Saurav, it just feels like the other day that I was changing your diapers. All of a sudden now you're ready for college. I'm going to miss all the grill of taking you from one event to other event. Looking for all the best for all your endeavors.
Congratulations, Saurav, on graduating. We're both really proud of you, and honestly, I wouldn't be who I am without you. But I don't really want to talk sappy stuff. I'm honestly so proud of you, and we're gonna miss you at the house, but Pluto likes me more still.
Hi, my name is Vedith Morthy, and I just graduated from the Academy for Math, Science, and Engineering in Morris County. So, having lived through the pandemic, I have a couple main takeaways. I enjoyed a lot of the free time that it offered me. School prior to the pandemic was often super stressful, and it gave me not a lot of time to do anything I wanted to do. The pandemic, however, gave me a lot of free time with the shortened school days, and I could spend more time on my hobbies like music. On the flip side, I also felt really down because not being able to see my friends and extended family kind of shut my social life down. But I found that there's always a way to connect, at least in the digital age, with video calls and messages, so I could check up on the people that matter to me the most. In the future, I'm really excited about attending college at the College of William and Mary in Virginia, where I'll be studying economics and environmental policy. I think the desire to protect and preserve the environment is growing across the world, and I want to be a part of the solution that does that without disrupting any progress. I'm also really excited to become an adult. I think it takes a lot of learning to function as an adult, but I am still excited to start learning and to become independent. I also hope that I can continue my musical career into the future and continue learning and performing. Music is one of my favorite pastimes, and getting to share it with others is an even better feeling. So I can only hope to play gigs and perform into the future. For the next set of graduates, I also have a little advice. Try to find passions or hobbies and do as much as you can with them. Whether that be doing competitions or being the president of a club, it all offers a lot of valuable experience that can help you grow and succeed later on in life. Second, don't be afraid or too prideful to ask for help from others. Most of us are pretty fortunate to have robust support systems of friends and family who have our best interests in mind, and there's nothing wrong or shameful in taking advantage of that. Thank you. Bye.
ಎಲ್ಲಾದರೂ ಇರು ಎಂತಾದರೂ ಇರು ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನೀ ಕನ್ನಡವಾಗಿರು.
Thank you so much, 2021 graduates. All your experiences through the pandemic and all your experiences through the last couple of years and all that you've achieved is phenomenal. We wish you all the best from the Brindavana family. For all of you guys who are watching, thank you so much for coming out and supporting our children, because with your support, you could see what these kids can do and what these kids can achieve, as our panelists have. So, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಬರ್ತಾನೆ ಇರಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೃಂದಾವನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳೆಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅದು ಯಾರ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬನ್ನಿ, ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಹಂಗೆ ಅವರು ಏನ್ ತಿಳ್ಕೊತಾರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. So we appreciate all of your support, and we hope to see you guys in our next event. Thank you so much.